one technical developer, that is myself. We have two technical developers that I'm speaking to right now about potentially joining the team. There are other people on our team who are programmers, but they are not doing programming work for the game. So Jester, for example, he does know C# relatively, but he's not working on code. He's working on world design and making sure that our development documents are squared away, so we have a rubric moving forward. But it's one and might be three in the near future. Any other questions relating? I will take that as a no. Okay.
So quiet.
We're intent to
What
listen.
Is that Barack?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question.
Okay, cool. Are we ready to move on to the next category then?
Yep.
Okay, great. The next category is base gameplay. This is probably one of our biggest categories, so bear with me, please. Oh my god. Okay. Anyways, will the combat be completely up to the user themselves? What I mean to say is that two players each have a sword and a shield. If I can't use my shield in time, will I be able to block the opponent's sword with my own sword or with other objects that can realistically block the sword?
So there's a lot of discussion on physics interactions inside the engine that we're building, and the best answer I can give is I don't know yet. A lot of it is going to come down what we can reasonably handle within a multiplayer experience, and unfortunately, we can't know what is possible until we actually get into the meat of that network development. That being said, at least from an individual, from a single player perspective, ideally there is nothing stopping you from using any of your tools or anything that you can grab to interact with the world. I mean, we've even talked about the possibility of fishing poles being able to do blunt damage just as a failsafe. So those things are being considered. We just don't know what is possible until we get there.
Neat. I also wanted to say congrats to PKM Love for sending that in and for doing a good job on your Shakespeare skit. Okay, anyways. How many hours of gameplay are you estimating? Is there going to be a system to keep replayability, or will there be a set amount of gameplay before maxing everything out?
Hours of gameplay is not something we can answer right now, because that comes down to the amount of work we can put into actual iterative content as opposed to mechanics. That being said, the idea is that all of these skills that we have planned, so like combat, life skills, every single one of those should be in depth enough to where even if you spend a couple hundred hours doing one thing, then if you get bored of it, even if you just don't want to do it anymore, you have a whole plethora of other things that you can go and do. So the idea is that generally the experience will be expansive, and we can expand upon it both during early access, on release, just depending on where we're at and the things that we want to add. So I definitely wouldn't stress about playtime. This is one of those things that you will be able to sink time into.
Awesome. Next question. What is the end game going to be for Asteria? They said, I'm really excited to play a new MMO, but a lot of what keeps people playing these games is when the game has a really good endgame experience. I would really hate to see people flood into this game, and then when they finish the main story or campaign, they will be bored and the game will die out within the first few weeks or months. We've seen this happen with other games like Zenith, and it was really fun at the beginning, and then we finished the story, and we had to wait months to get any form of endgame. By that point, the player base wasn't nearly as large as it was on launch, and the game died shortly after. There are still people who play it, but it's a very minimal amount compared to what it used to be.
So, for anyone who has paid attention to our forums, there's not a specific end game, right? As we talked about the story and the narration of the world, a lot of that is setting the stage for player interactions, allowing the players to progress that story, and allowing that story progression to, help us add more content, right? So, instead of there being an explicit, you did it, you beat the main story, the story is what you and the other players are doing actively, right? And that will affect things like, the world, certain events that happen, the environment around you. So I don't think that I'd be lying if I said that we followed the traditional structure of game then end game, because I think that separated and individual experience is not one that's easily built upon. You guys will see more of that as we continue to kind of iterate the story and the plans for that. But I would just read through some of the forums because we talk a lot about building the story off of that main point.
Cool. Okay. There's a lot of questions about skills here, so I'm going to kind of go into these a little more rapid fire. So someone said, how is the skill system going to work? Are the skills chosen? Is it a skill tree? And are there going to be stat points? We've talked about this a little bit before, but yes, go for it.
So for those of you that aren't aware, we're ditching the stat point approach because I think it's a little bit silly, especially in the context of what's supposed to be an immersive VR game. So we want to take the RuneScape approach. You will get better at things just by doing them, right? So as a blacksmith, your blacksmithing will increase by blacksmithing, right? If you were using a short sword, you will level up in short sword skills and get more of them by using your short sword, and then there's also the even more rudimentary level that is like player stats. Like your strength will increase over time by doing things that require that. Your agility will increase over time by running around the world, dodging attacks, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of focus on just doing the thing that you want to get better at, and it'll happen through time.
Nice. Okay. So we got 2 questions on cooking. So how will cooking be done in Asteria compared to other games? One person asked, will there be dynamic cooking? If you make the meal with better ingredients or better skill, will the buff that you receive from the meal be higher? And the other person asked, or said, I'm really excited to see a cooking mechanic being added. I was wondering how in-depth this will actually be. I'm a culinary major, so I get super excited to see cooking in any game. Will there be full recipes? Can we mix and match different foods? Or will it be more of a Monster Hunter style of cooking where you have set ingredients and a small quick time event to make sure it's cooked well? Either way, super excited.
So right now we're trying to see what's possible with the current framework, and a lot of that comes down to the physics implementation that we're working on. But ideally, and what we have planned, is that you will have a bunch of ingredients that you can mix and match to make certain recipes, right? And we want the cooking to be dynamic, right? So it's not going to be this thing where like put a bowl in an oven and then you wait 20 seconds and then it's done. No, it's you have a steak that you got from some monster and you put it on the pan and you hold the pan over the fire, and the closer the pan is to the fire, the faster it cooks. Eventually you have to flip it, right? You get to choose what seasonings to put on it, right? And all of those little things will have buffs. I think that Monster Hunter is actually a really good comparison. We just want to put it in the hands of the player and actually let them do it. So
Neat. Okay. Next question. How will potion making be done in Asteria? Will there be an advanced system in which you pick herbs, plants, ingredients, prepare them using specific methods, such as with a mortar and pestle or heating things to certain temperatures, etc.?
we're torn on methods here because, again, this comes down to the physics mechanics, right? Ideally, there will be an act of mixing that's very active, right? And that'll come down to things that you've gathered. It might also involve heat similar to cooking, but it'll come down to things that you've gathered or things that other people have gathered for you. Again, you guys will see more updates as we know more.
Okay. Neat. We got a lot of questions on blacksmithing. 3 main ones, really, and the overall arching kind of question is how in-depth will the blacksmithing system be? So someone said, how much will our own blacksmithing skills affect our combat? Will we do reduced or enhanced damage when we smith or repair our own weapons? The next person asked, with the smithing system, are you planning to make it super in-depth or a more simple smithing system? Like, can I mix a bunch of materials to make something new, or do I have to stick to the formula? Will it affect the weapon I create? And the third person said, will Asteria simulate real-world metallurgy in blacksmithing, including heat treatment and quenching effects? How does the heat treatment process for blacksmithing weapons and armor work? Is it purely aesthetic, or does the game simulate real-life metallurgy principles such as quenching, tempering, and work hardening to affect durability, sharpness, or flexibility? Additionally, does improper cooling impact the final product stats or even risk cracking the material?
So,
That is a very
That's a
good-
long
my
one.
recommendation, as for a lot of these questions, go read the Ask the Devs channels. We answered pretty much all of those questions there. But to put it short, a lot of what we've kind of laid out for blacksmithing comes down to what is reasonable for the framework. I'm talking to a few people who do smithing, either as a hobby or for a living right now, to see both what is realistic and what we can get away with. On a base level, as a blacksmith, you'll be able to do everything from, hammering a piece of hot steel into shape wrapping the handle yourself, choosing the pommel, whether it be one that you're making for yourself or per another player's specifications, right? And the materials that you use will actually affect things like tunability, or specific stats relating to elementalism, right? So we definitely have a lot that we're considering, and as soon as we get those physics in, I can show you guys more. But it's going to be a fully involved process. We want to make sure that all these life skills are in depth enough to where you can do those as a main experience and still be satisfied by the experience.
Okay. Next question. Will there be different fuels for use within the game? Geneva mentioned at this end, and he said, as Star talked a bit about in blacksmithing and VC. Wow, man, guys, I can't read. Okay. As Star talked a bit about blacksmithing in VC, it got me wondering, will there be different types of fuel? For example, like wood, charcoal, coal, coke, purified coke, and maybe some extra fantasy types of fuel. I want to know if different materials will bring different heat levels, and if this wasn't thought of, is it a possible idea that could be implemented?
I remember seeing this question. The big thing that we have to ask, and the thing that I need to talk to designers about is that implementation meaningful enough to replace another mechanic that would be better in place? I don't know, especially because we are building out the world, and a lot of materials, if not all materials, are going to be from the world.
Like in the shot.
Okay.
But a majority of those materials will be gotten from the world, right? So that's a consideration that we'll decide on, but I cannot reasonably say that it will make it or that we've thought about it much.
Fantastic. Okay. Someone asked, will there be an in-game currency and what will that look like? We did talk about this before, but I'm gonna let Star take it away.
We have obviously there will be in-game currency. There's no way that an economy would work without it. The question that we're asking now is, do we take the typical gold route, or gil, or whatever the hell you want to call it? Or do we want to do something a bit more realistic to the world, right? A bit more realistic to the story, and the creatures of the world, whatever that may be. Especially if they're going to be dropping from monsters or enemies, it's probably important that we consider that. So as soon as we know, you'll know.
Awesome. Okay. These next three little questions are from about magic. So
Real
how
quick,
different are magic?
before we jump ahead, I see that we have a lot of questions. I'd like to knock those out real quick because
Yeah, for sure.
I want to make sure that you guys don't lose them. You've had your hand up for like a year, so I'm gonna get yours first.
Okay, so you said like parts, like the pommel and stuff like that.
Sure.
Is that like pre-made parts for the sword that you can put on?
They won't be pre-made, but they will be predetermined. There's as much as we would love to have a full breadth, like no limits customization system, it essentially means either really unperformant caching or just an incredibly large file size, or things that just can't look good, right? So the idea is that we provide enough customization options and enough modularities that you can do pretty much anything, just not literally everything. And then that is what either a player has to choose from or a blacksmith has to choose from, etc. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then
There are
someone
a
over here,
few.
you, Gina.
What's up? I have two questions. One, both of which came up while we were talking about this. First off,
Sure.
is this going to be a player-driven economy?
Yes.
Awesome. Second question regarding the skill tree, the skill progression. If someone were to say to dual wield two different bladed weapons, like a short sword in one hand, a long sword in another, could you grind the skills for both of those at the same time?
You could, but you would only get half the experience for each because you're only using each one at most half as much.
Cool.
I mean, not technically. The idea. So here's the thing, right? If you have two swords and you're using only one sword, you're only leveling up that sword. If you're using the other sword, you're only leveling up that sword. If you're using both swords, you're leveling up both of them, but it's gonna take twice as long because it's getting split between two different weapon types. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. What's up, William? And I'll get you next, Cardinal.
Yeah, we
my-
can't hear you, dog.
Oh, hello. He's my friend. He can't talk.
Okay.
All right. So wait, what do you have to say? All right. All right. So what he's asking is about the alchemist recipes, like.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, about the alchemist recipes. Will they be preset, or will you unlock them as you progress through the game?
You'll unlock them as they progress. Now there's some questions about how we want to, uh, make that both narratively and realistically consistent with you as a player unlocking more things over time. When realistically anybody with their merit could just do them off the bat. Obviously, there needs to be a progression balance, and we're talking about how exactly that's going to work in the context of these life skills. But you won't be able to do everything from the start. You will have to learn more things as you go.
All right.
Is that it?
All right, Carmel, what's
good.
up? I don't know if we're gonna take that much of approach. Anything that would realistically require a level of strength, will be doable. But to go that far with like full body exercise, I don't know. You got a question, Kermie? How will custom items be handled in terms of, say, multiple people making the same item but slightly different with unique data? That's going to come down to just kind of the limits that we have for not just like the items themselves, but the inventory system, because that's a whole different level of like item data. Um, Ideally, there is a wide range of things that are very minimally different, whether it be small stat changes or maybe a small ability or even curses. But again, we won't know what that looks like until we can figure out what is realistically possible. Just know that it is something on the list that we're trying to experiment with. All right,
Okay, we have
Golden.
2 more. Oh, maybe more than
Now,
2.
the economy. Is that just decided by the players or the NPCs too?
No. It's a mix. So I would recommend if any of you have a question about the economy, go look at the Ask the Devs channel. We have a whole big thread about player economy, how it's supposed to work, how we plan on it working. That's my advice to you. All
We
right,
have
we're gonna
Minty
get
over here on the side and Anki Anchor as well, who have been holding their hands this whole time, just
Okay.
so we can get them.
Minty. What's up?
With the the events happening depending on what the players do, if you know the game Eco, will it kind of be like that?
I don't know the game Eco, so I couldn't
It's
say.
basically a game where if you overhunt something, it's like you create a world that lasts like a week straight that only the players have a say on what happens in the world, and if you overhunt something or if you mine too many materials and pollute stuff, like the place will become inhabitable, and if you hunt too much, the animals like won't spawn anymore. So I'm just wondering if it's gonna be like that kind of.
It's definitely not going to go that far. Consider what happens if the only US East server becomes polluted and there aren't any materials. Then everybody that's in US East can no longer experience the game, and they can't do so without playing on a server that's going to be worse for them. So that's obviously a problem. That being said, players will affect the world. They will affect spawn rates. This is something that GMs are going to kind of help regulate, but if things do get overhunted or overcollected, those things will spawn less, right? Whether it be the rates go down or they just stop appearing entirely because of like just a complete over increase in abundancy. But that's something that we will help regulate as game masters to keep that gameplay loop going.
Okay.
And then who else was it? Liv?
It was Anki Acre in front of us and Kostas Plays behind. And
All right,
I think
Anki.
Demi Hoodie as well has a question.
All right, Anki, what's up?
Okay, I have two questions. So with like you said you're gonna get better at something by just doing it. Is it gonna be like separate per weapon, like different kinds of weapons, like an axe
Yes.
and sword? Yeah. Okay, and second one, like, are you gonna have a bunch of like side stories where you can get like a unique item or something?
I don't know about fully unique items. A unique item means that every player has to download the space for that item, and after enough unique items, you have a game that is 1 terabyte, right? That being said, we do want to allow things like items, weapons that are in the world that are, through our in-house customization, relatively, if not almost completely different from things that any other player has gotten. But there will be limits to what is possible there, just because if everything is completely custom, then everyone has to download every weapon that they're not even going to use. So we're having some considerations, but you'll see more as we know. All right, Kostas, what's up? After Kostas, we'll get Demi, and we'll keep going with our list of questions.
Right. Understand. Ooh, that's a good question. We actually have that question. I'm reading this.
If you want to just go ahead and ask the full question, that way we can get it.
Yeah, sure. It was actually the one right after the one I was going to ask next. So I can actually, someone had asked that as well. How advanced will the enemy's AI be? Like, will they be able to react to your movements in combat, thus being able to block your moves and change their combat style based on their opponent?
Sure.
Oh, outside of combat as well.
Oh.
There we go. All right, now that that's taken care of. So right now, the biggest decision, the biggest decisions will come out through testing. So I would love to say one of the way or the other, hey, our weapons are going to physically interact. You'll be able to stab enemies, or they'll slice through them like butter because it's more conducive to an action experience. Genuinely, what's going to happen is we are going to set both of them up, and then we were going to just do very large testing pools. For those of you that for those of you that saw the tester pool, we have like 800 people, and so everything from aggroing to disarming enemies, to them teaming up and working together, or pinning someone down, and trying to strategize with other enemies. Like those are things that we are all going to test in full. Ideally, we want combat to be dangerous and impactful every time. We want every encounter, even if it's a relatively simple one, to be a dangerous one. And so, a lot of what we're going to be developing and testing is, do these enemies feel good to fight? Are they boring, right? So even outside of just getting aggro, like we want to, one of the things that I'm working on right now is if you, hurt a goblin enough and you piss it off, it'll back up and sling its weapon at you and run away. So there's a lot that we're testing out to see what feels good, and what feels fun and interesting. I would just keep eyes on updates for that. We'll be doing that. We're gonna get Demi's question, and then Bu, after the next few listed questions, I promise I'll get you. What's up, Demi?
Okay, so my question is, what about having multiple characters? Because I don't think that's been brought up yet.
Right. So The biggest, the biggest thing about multiple characters, is that obviously there's a database strain, right? That's not to say that it isn't possible or that it's not like we're considering it. Ideally, what I think will happen is you will have a few slots, whether it be 2 or 3, I'm not sure just yet. Will we allow people to get more?
Because they have.
Maybe. I want to see. I want to see how that works. But the ideal is that we have at the very least 2. Um, and again, we'll know more as we continue to develop that backend.
Okay, follow up to that.
Sure.
Will transferring, if you are able to have multiple characters, transferring items like gear that you get that's for a specific class that you want with that character, stuff like that.
You will not be able to transfer items between characters. It
Okay.
opens the door for boosting your own characters and just kind of skipping past the whole progression part, which is not ideal for the experience.
Fair enough.
First.
Okay. All right. So backtrack real quick for the magic and skills questions. How are different magic / skills going to be learned or collected? How is mastery going to work with skills and spells? And so we had 3 kind of sub questions underneath this topic. The first one is, what does the process of learning magic and skills look like? Will magic only come from loot or items? Will magic elements or tools be craftable? Is it a mixture of both? As far as mastery, is it going to be earned when you use the skill or spell enough, or is it going to be based on something else? The next one says how many spells you're going to add and what kinds of spells will be there. And the third one said, what can you tell me about support or healing magic for the game?
So in terms of magic, I know this is a heavily talked about topic. There is kind of a bit of, I guess, variation of what we want to do. So just the way that I talked about earlier, where we have base stats, that is transferable to something like, I don't know, base elements or base types of magic, right? So you can get better at fire magic, or you can get better at, water magic or darkness magic or whatever it may be. And then that can help you with specific spells or abilities, but you will still have to improve those specific spells or abilities, right? So if, let's say I'm a fire wizard or whatever, and I've done nothing but fire, and I can throw a fireball like a motherfucker, right? I'm going to be relatively good at conjuring a firestorm. Am I going to be perfect at it? No, I will still have to do it a bunch. But in the vein of you get better by doing, that is the approach that we want to take with magic as well. So
Neat. We already asked the enemy AI question. Someone asked how many enemy variants will there be? Do we have a list or a type? Do we have a list of the type or amount of enemies for the game yet?
we don't have a list, though in our game development document we do list variants. And the most I can tell you guys right now is that we do have variants for enemies planned, and they're not just variants that change colors or like slightly stronger. They are fundamentally different variants that do fundamentally different things. They will interact with each other in groups, specifically based on those variants. So
Very cool. Okay, someone asked, will we get special effects or evolutions for specific weapons? For example, will weapons be able to get special effects after doing specific things with them? Like when you hit milestones, like kill 500 enemies, kill a certain boss with it. Do you get something exciting for it?
We don't know yet, because the big idea with the whole, doing is learning progression is that you're getting skills anyways because you're using that weapon. To put skills for certain levels on specific weapons is a bit out of scope and not. It doesn't really mesh well with the system that we're building. So the short answer, I can't know yet, but I'm doubtful. All of your skills should be something that you can learn, not from a specific weapon. If there is a specific weapon that has a specific skill, it will be inherent to that weapon and you won't have to unlock it. But any other skill will be learned just like every other skill that you can get with a weapon.
Okay. We've got 2 left for the category. One was, will there be stats and or subclasses for more diverse character builds? Which we are doing classless, so just want to preface with that. But someone that they continued and said, I know that balancing can be a major influence as to how a game is made, but I still would like to have control over my build, like being able to combine magic and melee for a more glass cannon build, which is only possible if I can control my own stats, or if there is a plethora of classes to choose from. So how will that work?
Your stats that are typically chosen in like any other RPG, like defense or attack, will come down to a few things. Your defense and speed trade-off comes down to your armor, right? You can have little to no armor and get pieced up in a fight, or you can have a lot of armor and move very slow, right? Whenever it comes to the things you can actually do, as we discussed before, that's something that you will learn by doing. So if I wanted to be a spell sword, right, I'd focus on simple magic and whatever sword that I'd want to use. And if I wanted to be a fast spell sword, I wouldn't wear a lot of armor. If I wanted to be a heavy one that couldn't move, then I would, right? A lot of it is very hands-on. They just use different methods to get there. But the idea is that players should be able to kind of create their own play style with the tools that they're given.
Neat. Last question in this section is the title was just katana, and they said, "Will there be a katana?"
Yes, there will. There
Very
will be
nice.
some.
Awesome.
All right, let's knock these out. I know there are a few of you. Golden, let me get you first. We'll go this way on.
So, how are you going to deal with client users and people like that?
With what users?
Client users.
Give me an example of a client that you think will be problematic, because I know what you're asking,
The
and there's an answer
Unity
to this question.
Explorer, you can go into any world, all the files opened, you can spawn items, you can grab items, you can damage players, all that kind of stuff.
So there are two problems with that, right? The first one is that Unity Explorer expects an already existing rip of a full game, right? Which means that somewhere along our security line we fucked up. Unity Explorer is not something that you can just open up to a game that's never had any interaction with it and then suddenly start doing things, right? It's something that has to be decompiled and reverse engineered. And then on the topic of being able to do things from your client, this is not a client off game. So even if they do have that access, they can't do anything. Whenever I do damage to a monster, it's not me hitting it and then my client sending to the server that I did damage to the monster. It is the client or the server realizing that I did that and then making that change, right? I've been talking to a lot of people who have, done plenty of games like this, who have done the absolute worst mistakes when it comes to security. We have a plan in place, and for those of you that want to know more about the technical implementations of that, I'm happy to talk to you. In a voice chat probably after this. But just know that we have accounted for those things, and I don't foresee them being problems under our current plan.
Okay.
All right, Nerfed.
I was wondering, how are you guys gonna stop? So let's say I'm in like a PvP counter, right, against a guy, and he just starts swinging around like a maniac. How are you guys? Is there gonna be like a way to prevent that or something? Is there
So
gonna be like a stamina bar or something to prevent people from like whacking like crazy and you can't even block it?
Good question. So first of all, there are going to be weights to weapons, right? Now, are we going to get to the point where there being this big, like, clean physical interaction system between players? I don't know yet, but we are going to try our damnedest. But that being said, there will be physical interactions. There will be weight to certain weapons. So if you sit there doing this with your sword, it's not going to work, right? Same with just normal combat. It's not going to work. You're going to have a lot more, a lot more success if you actually put effort and motion into your swings. And then also we are working on some sort of stamina system. Will it remain? We can only know through testing, but we are experimenting with it right now, and you'll know as soon as we do.
Right, thank you. And just one more question.
Sure.
About the wallets. Is it
Okay.
gonna be like every other game where it's just like you have a certain amount of gold and just like give it, or you can have like an actual wallet that you like take money out of and hand it to people?
I don't know if I know from an immersion perspective it's cool. I don't know to what extent we'll have that. Ideally, as we've talked about before during our like design principle talks, everything that you do in this game should be immersive. And so ideally what'll happen is you'll get it out of your actual physical backpack as opposed to a separate wallet item. Because there will be backpacks and there will be inventory, and a lot of it will be compartmentalized into that backpack. So if we take that route, it'll be there. All right, Gina.
Howdy. First question, I have two questions. First one is in regards to the magic system. How many different elements are there in terms of magic?
We won't know yet. So right now, the ones that I'm currently working on are all of your simple ones, right? Fire, earth, water, lightning. We haven't touched air magic. That's a nasty thing to do from a technical perspective. We've
Yeah, that one's
also
always nasty.
considered. Yeah, no. We've definitely considered more along the lines of fantasy aspects. We've considered things like holy magic. We've considered things like dark magic. What those actually mean will depend on the things that we can realistically and narratively put into those things. Just know that we do have a good few that are planned, at the very least 6. Will that number be higher? I can't say yet.
Cool. Second question was in regards of Tim's question for multiple characters. Uh, will there be an option for a hardcore mode where like only one life, and if you die, you lose character.
Ooh.
Use character and have to make a new
You
one.
know I love me some permadeath, but I don't know yet. From a technical perspective, not a hard thing to do. Is it
May I
something
add
that we will? What's up?
May I add something else to that?
Sure.
What if you do decide to do that? Why not turn that player character that died into an enemy that other people will have to put down?
That's down the line. There are some there are a lot of network implications with that. And probably a large new functionality that is just for that specific purpose. So I don't know about that. But we absolutely will consider permadeath. Will it make final game? I don't know. But if enough players ask for it, I mean, I don't know. We'll consider it.
All right.
All right, Anki, you're up.
Okay. Oh wait.
In regards to magic, have y'all thought about like buffing magic where you can buff yourself?
Yes, though ideally, you will see it more approachable and usable to buff others. Not to say that you shouldn't buff yourself or that it's not useful for that. But a lot of these abilities will be, they will have very serious multiplayer benefit, and so you'll find that a lot of the things that you can do, you can probably do better in a party. But yes, those will exist. All right, Kostas.
Is there a chance there are going to be multiple servers, as in separating people that want permadeath and people that don't want permadeath?
I don't know if we'll do like permadeath separation. There will be multiple servers. They will be locationally different. We might have multiple per region. If we do ever get to the point where we do permadeath, if there are just so many people that play permadeath that they want to be on a server together, I don't see why we wouldn't consider it. But it's not really in the cards right now as we continue to framework things out.
Star, I think we
And
missed.
then
Sorry, you guys finished what you're doing. Sorry, my bad.
And another question: considering the way the story is gonna be progressing, do you think the game will be more of an Korean MMO style? So like you level up until a certain point, and then the main thing you do is PvP, or just there is an ever-growing like
We want the
storyline,
story
I
to
guess.
continue to grow as the player base does, right? So, we talked about it a bunch in some of the Ask the Devs threads, but ideally, right, we have a set story, and then it is open-ended to allow players to continue to interact with it, right? In a way that goes, hey, we can use this thing that happened or this thing that these players collectively did and turn it into the next piece of content, right? The idea is that it should be a ever-continuing story that the players are involved in, as opposed to hitting a wall and then being told to go do something else.
All right, thanks.
William?
I have 2 questions. My first question is, will there be level locking when it comes to weapons and armor? Like, will they just not, like starter players not be able to use like level 20 stuff just because of the level? Or will you add some kind of weight thing to it where it's too heavy for them to put it on?
It'll be a weight thing, but not in the case where they can't put it on. They can put those things on. They can use a weapon that is way too heavy for them, but they won't like it, right? If there's a player that's level 0 that wants to put on a lead block of a chest plate and go try to fight a dude, but while crawling, I mean, they're welcome to do that. But it might not be the best experience. That's up to them, you know.
Okay. My second question is, I thought of it when Nerf was asking about the wallet stuff. Will there be some kind of like bank where if you do add a theft roll or a thief roll where they can maybe create a heist to steal some money from the bank, not all of it, and where you could keep your money safe?
I'm very doubtful on that one. Just because with with the way that the economy is set up, you and the way that like your personal inventory is set up, you won't need a bank, you know. But also, and I think more importantly is, the whole like setting up bank heists is a little outside of the I guess the principle of the design. Now, will we have roles where you can do things that are not legal and that create implications for you and like town guards? Sure, that's something we're considering now, especially with guarding being one of the roles that you can choose. But is it going to be so far to where you can just kind of uproot a major part of the town by doing something like that? I'm very doubtful. But you'll know as soon as we do.
Before we jump to the next one, you did skip Katsuki over there, I think.
All right, Katsuki, what's up? If you
Your
were talking, I
dumbass
cannot
is
hear you, sorry.
muted.
we can hear you, Katsuki.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh no.
You're muted, dog.
Text box
They're just typing.
or the
Maya, can you move, please? You're on me.
Yes, and Minty. Thank you for noticing, Biwu. I appreciate that. We missed Minty as well.
How do I reach? What? How do I reach my hand without a hand? I can be your hand. I don't know that, but I'll be your hand. Don't worry. Just not tonight. What? For like the next 5 minutes.
Okay, Katsuki, I'm gonna
I'll
keep
be your right hand for the next 5 minutes.
I'm gonna keep running this way like I was, and then we'll come back whenever we re-get these guys over here. All right, Twisted, what's up?
Okay.
All right, so I got a couple questions. So whenever it comes to sword melee combat, and I know there's going to be people that are doing hack and slash and stuff like that, and that's typical in VR MMO. But my thing is are there going to be sword skills? Are there going to be set, determined patterns that you swing to activate said skills so that you get like a double slash, a wind slasher to combine your magic into your sword type of aspect?
Okay, yes and no, right? So, the one thing that we talked about when we talked about skills, especially in the past, is that skills are supposed to be open-ended, so players can use them the way that they want to, right? So whenever I was, showcasing that one early skill prototype for the sword that you guys have probably seen in the combat video, even though it's super outdated, right? It was just my sword glows, it has a cool effect, and then I can do an attack for way more damage, right? Is that attack a slash? Is it a stab? Am I hitting them with my pommel? I get to choose, right? And so the idea is that we have a bunch of skills that are mutable, so that whenever a player uses them, they get to make their own playstyle out of them. Whatever that is up to them without a detriment to their own damage or to their own speed. So yes, there are a bunch of set skills that players will get, but what they can do with them is not set in stone. You can use one skill in different ways, and there will be a bunch of them. So realistically, a player can take all of them and just kind of build their own playstyle out of it.
Now, I do have one final question because I know you said that it's going to be a player-driven economy.
Sure.
My question on that is, how is that going to interact with the economy as far as what's going to engage the community? Are we going to have raiding? Are we going to have battlegrounds like World of Warcraft? Are we going to try to get exclusive gear to put up on a marketplace type deal to make sure that open-ended market is continuing to keep driving so that even lower level mats are farmed for people to buy?
Great question. Awesome question. So let's talk about player economy, right? The first thing whenever we talk about player economy is influx, outflux, and circulation, right? So you have your entrance of income into the economy, you have the circulation of that income, and then you have the outflux or the gold dump, right? There are many different ways to do all three of them, but the way that we have it planned is this. Every person has something that they will primarily be doing during any play session, right? And if not, it's fine because it's split between 2 or 3 or 7 things anyways. So proportionally, it doesn't make a huge difference. But I, right, am a warrior. I love sword and shield. I'm a monster with sword and shield. It's my favorite thing to do in the world. I am not a great chef. I'm not very good at it, at least not in this game, right? And I haven't spent a lot of time into it, and so there's that. So here's the loop, right? I go and I go kill some giant dragon, and then I come home. I get big buffs from eating food. I could make my own food, right? Is it going to be as good? Do I want to do it? No and no, right? So I'm gonna go to a player chef. And that incentivization will be I'm always going to get better buffs from someone else who is specializing in that thing. And so I go to them, and then the money flows there, right? Now, that's just the circulation part. That's just how money gets from one person to another. How do we make sure that every level of that economy is important? Well, for each player that does something, like let's take blacksmithing, for example. It's the big example that we use, right? I am a level actually no, I'll keep the same example. I'm a sword guy. I love swords, right? I go in a town and I go, damn it, I really just need another carving knife. I don't want to go to a whole blacksmith and spend the extra gold to go to a high level blacksmith because it won't make a difference with a carving knife. Let's say that Cardinal is the best blacksmith in the server, right? If I'm gonna go get a Dragonite sword from him or whatever it is, I'm gonna go to him because he can do it. It's gonna cost me more, but it's gonna be high quality. If I need a carving knife, I'm not gonna go to him, right? Because why would I? Why would I spend the extra money? The level 75 Guardian of Asteria, first to Emmy or whatever it is, might go to a level. Will go to a level 4 blacksmith and go, hey, can you make me a carving knife, right? And so the idea is, as people continue to join these skills, there is always going to be a demand for the things that they produce because everything that everybody can produce is necessary, right? You will never find something that you can craft that has no use except to sell and hope that somebody buys it. You're not going to be crafting like lawn chairs or canopies or whatever. You'll be crafting torches and arrows and knives and ropes and traps. And that goes for every part of the experience because bottom all the way to the top, all of those things should be necessary. I hope that kind of answered your question. We have a lot of topics on that.
It answered most of it.
Okay.
But I believe she's been waiting. Or they have.
Sure. Either get with me or go look at the forums. We have plenty of discussions on it.
Yeah.
Biwu, go ahead.
I think they're doing something.
Okay. All right, True. Go ahead. You're up.
Alrighty, I got 4 real quick questions for you.
I'll get you next, Biwu. You're good.
All regarding running fades. Starting with
Okay.
unarmored defense. How's that going to work?
Unarmored defense? Don't get hit, dude.
All
you
right,
will get torn up if you don't have
That's
armor.
really quick. Second question. If I want to pump all my points into agility, can I run faster than just about everyone else?
There's no points, but if you want to spend, 30 hours running around the map to get faster, I'm not going to stop you.
Fantastic. All right, question number 3. All right, so if I'm going ahead and I'm punching someone, how does status effects such as stunned work?
So status effects will come down to a few things. Those are things that, especially with fisticuffs, you'll learn over time. Specifically things like concussionary status effects. Those are things that'll be triggered by velocity of impact. So obviously you'll have to hit something hard enough. And I mean like really hard enough for that to happen. And just for a balancing perspective, you're not going to be able to just do it consecutively and get a free pass to a victory, but those skills will be available to you.
Okay, finally. Last question. There have been a lot of wizards talking smack. I want to be able to smack them, and either they lose concentration or they break chanting when I start wailing on them. Because I'm coming for the wizard first. Screw the going for the take. I'm coming for the wizard.
So that's a PvP question. We won't know that one until.
That goes for NPCs as well, because I know there will be like enemy warlocks in the back as well.
I can't say for certain yet, but that is hilarious.
All right. Hey, spellcasters beware.
All right.
I'm going to throw these hands.
Biwu was sitting down to type, by the way. I was watching
Yeah,
the
I saw.
text. So,
Biwu,
okay, good.
Biwu, go ahead. I know. We're
Yeah,
we're gonna
Colin
get
Minty.
back to this side. We're going around in a circle right now. Are you going to be sticking to the MMO Holy Trinity? Great question. No. Now that's not to say that those things can't be fulfilled by players if they want to, right? Because again, I'm the kind of person that would want to fulfill a tank role. But those are things that that can be, I mean, absolutely mitigated. So take that Trinity for example, right? If I want to be some dude that can just take just a shit ton of damage and do a shit ton of damage, I can do that at the expense of me being able to move pretty much at all, right? So I can be someone who is a tank and a DPS, but also that leaves the problem of I really can't move fast. That opens the door for me to get pieced up even over time. Same thing with any part of that Trinity, because uh, that comes down to the weapons that you use, the skills that you use, and then the armor that you wear. Your armor affects your speed. Your speed affects the damage that you can do because these enemies will be moving around. They'll be dodging. They'll be repositioning. They'll be strategizing together, right? So that Trinity won't exist explicitly. I don't believe in forcing players into very specific like skill roles. But players that do want to take those can. There's nothing stopping them. Okay, what's up, Claude?
Will players be able to make furniture for each other for like their houses?
That's a down the line question. I would ask me that again in like a month.
Okay, gotcha.
So okay, just so to put it plainly, I don't know if they will be able to craft furniture for each other, though I will say that we're experimenting with customization inside of player dwellings. Will it get to that point of crafting? I think it would be a great addition for crafting. I just don't know yet. Nico?
So you were talking about like maybe like a thief skill and stuff like that too.
Sure.
Do you tend to like put like stealth skills? Like you gotta activate something and then you start moving slower, maybe to do stealthy like stuff.
I don't know if, I mean, there might be stealth skills, but stealth will be something that you can level up over time by doing things like sneaking around, by staying low, by avoiding sight of enemies, by, moving slow enough to be quiet. And then you'll be able to do those things at a greater value, with less of a threshold to get caught over time. I just don't know how many skills we'll be able to put into something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Matrix?
Ark has a question. They can raise their hand because they're on PC.
Gotcha. What's up, Mark?
Very simple one.
Sure.
Will there be physics-based parrying?
Yes.
That's all I needed to know. And I think this little one down here needs one. He also needs a.
What's up, Isa? It's good seeing you.
He asked, what about dodging? Like, sort of Gargantua kind of like lean dodge.
You will be able to physically dodge, but you'll also, over time get skills to help you dodge out of the way. Like short stepping,
My question. I'm sorry.
All right, Minty.
So going on with the thing you said about a level 0 person can't like pick up a heavy weapon.
Sure.
Would the weapon weight increase with the play level itself, or like the level of efficiency with the weapon?
It's the level of efficiency. So like as a level or as a weapon can do more damage, or pertains to certain skills, or is just bigger by nature because it's a broadsword as opposed to a short sword, that'll scale weight. And the reason that we have it set that way right now is because the one thing that will always scale no matter what you're doing is strength. That being said, we might make it level based in the future. We won't know until we do testing and players tell us what feels the best. Crazy.
So with like enemies and stuff, how would like level scaling work? So like they get more difficult as you level up, or like different zones have like different difficulties?
Different zones will have different difficulties. Those monsters will have different difficulties. You can go anywhere and die if you want to, but no one's gonna stop you.
Sweet. Thanks.
Golden.
So I have two questions.
Sure.
With the servers from time zones, can I go to a different one depending on? So if I have a friend in like STL or EST time zones, can I go there?
Allowing players to visit players on other servers is on the list of things we want to implement. I don't know how in depth that'll be or how feasible it will be from a technical perspective, but ideally
with-
or realistically, it's not the hardest thing in the world. So
With the warrior class and then stuff like that, can I be a warrior and then train up my blacksmithing?
there's
And
no
then if I
class.
want,
You can do whatever you want. If you want to go be a warrior for a day and then get better at blacksmithing and you want to go be a mage the next day, nothing is stopping you. You'll still retain all those skills. So if we implement visiting, it won't be the characters actually moving to another server. Now, if the question is will we be able to transfer our players to other servers, then yes, that's not a hard thing to do. It's expensive, but it's not hard. Nerf, what's up? Or was that your question, Katsuki, or did you have another one? Okay. What's up, Nerf?
So I got a few questions. Based off of him, I think it was so theoretically, if I played like 24/7, 365, I could become perfect at everything. I could become like
Yes.
him.
You could, but if we continue to expand, then you're gonna have a lot of work to do.
I guess yeah. Second question.
Okay.
So I heard
Sure.
you were thinking about doing like voice activated magic.
Mhm.
So what if, like, for example, somebody has like a damaged vocal cord and cannot speak? Are they just like completely cut off from that kind of magic, or is there going to be a different way?
No, so we want to ideally allow players to go between either spoken magic or rune drawn magic. We're working on both right now. But it'll be a choice between the two. We might even allow for both, maybe. We'll have to see how that works. Just a heads up, we're gonna get Gino's question, and then we're gonna move back into listed questions because we do have more to get through, and then I'll open the floor up later. Gino, what's up?
Sorry. He actually made a good point on the damaged vocal cord thing. Is there going to be a way for like muted people to be able to communicate with others, like a keyboard or something?
Yes, there will be
Cool.
text chat. It'll pop over your head.
Cool.
People around you will see it.
Cool. Second question: for enemies or players that have abilities that have say knockback effects, will there be a way for you to negate the knockback by like stabbing your sword into the ground and hunkering down to do so?
That's a big physics question. We will see if our engine allows for stuff like that, though. What I can say is one of the sword abilities is you can stick your sword in the ground and throw yourself up into the air. Now, will other entities be able to push you around physically? I don't know. And there's also some concerns about like motion sickness and accessibility, though that's a different story. So you'll know more as we do.
Fair.
Yes. I was answering someone in the chat. The what's it called? You get me. Okay. We're moving on to the technical development category, which is like game mechanics, frameworking, systems, etc. These are kind of a bit of a mixed bag, but the first question that we got from somebody in that category was, will the physics of the game be like Blade and Sorcery, or will they be better? Will there be weapon collisions with the ground and other objects? For example, will pots and pans hit each other, or will things I throw at a house actually hit the house? Will there be a difference in this between PvP and PvE versus PvE also?
Great question. Okay, so let's clear the air because I know that there have been a lot of questions about this. Will our physics be better than Blade and Sorcery? No, it is not possible. There are too many considerations with Blade and Sorcery's physics system. It is a full-bodied physics system, and that's why multiplayer, even for 2 people, is super hard to implement. Well, modders are incredible. They do a great job, but there's no way to do that in servers of hundreds of people and have it perform well. It's just not possible. Not without making everything client-side, and we're also not doing that, right? On the other end, will there be physics like Blade and Sorcery? It won't be to the extent of Blade and Sorcery. The good thing about Blade and Sorcery that I love, and I love playing Blade and Sorcery for any of you that know that, is, I mean, there's definitely a physical aspect, but it does not match the style of an MMO, right? Because for any of you that has played Blade and Sorcery, you get one good stab in and the fight is over, right? That doesn't really fit well with an MMO. It doesn't fit with a fantasy world. And the encounters are supposed to feel dangerous, but also impactful. So if it's over in a single swing, it's not something that we're really looking for. We need to have a lighter version of those physics to be able to perform well on a server with hundreds of people. But you guys will see more about that because, as fate would have it, that's what I'm working on right now. So.
Also, I've been alerted that my $8 keyboard was making too much noise. I'm so sorry. Okay. Um, next question. How will weapons change as your stats increase? This was kind of answered earlier via Menti's question, but someone had asked, will large, heavy, and more unrealistic weapons get easier to wield with time, or can we use them with one hand with enough levels? Long story short, yes.
Yeah,
What he
I'd say
said
yes.
earlier. Perfect. Okay. Next, somebody asked about quest compatibility. So they said, I know you've spoken in the past about wanting to implement the game for the quests that are on, but I wanted to know if you had a way of showing the progress on that front, like a Trello, for example. This way people are able to go there to check out what's being worked on, what will be worked on, and overall progress toward that goal.
So there's no way that we can have a Trello for quest development, because the way that quest development works is either you build it up for quest and you build it alongside PC versions, or you build the whole game and then you rebuild it for quest, right? There's no way for us to have a Trello on that right now. Honestly, I would just say keep heads up on updates.
Keep an eye out. We will let you know when we get there. This one we have answered in the Ask the Devs chat, so I'm going to go ahead and start by saying yes, we do have plans on this, but someone asked if we plan on implementing full body tracking into Asteria, and they said, as someone who is mute, full body tracking has been an excellent way for me to convey body language and communicate without needing to text out my replies. I do remember that you did confirm there would be proximity chat box similar to VR chat before, but I was just wondering if there were any plans to bring our characters to life with the addition of FBT, and the answer is we plan to. That is, am I right? Are we good on that?
Yes. The good news,
Okay, cool.
full body tracking is not hard to implement. The only thing is a performance concern, but there's no way that it's more of a performance concern than it is in VR chat. And not to be slimy, but most of the models in our game are more optimized than the average VR chat model, so I don't foresee that being a problem. Of course, the only thing for full body tracking is network consideration, but again, it's nothing we haven't seen. It's nothing other games haven't done. So absolutely on the list of things we're implementing.
Also, in the broadcast chat, OK Mop, the answer is we're trying to get it there. So hopefully, yes. They were asking about throwable weapons to damage enemies. Okay, do you know about the PC/hardware requirements to run Asteria? Secondarily, someone asked if you will support older hardware like GTX 1050s and other lower spec systems.
Okay, so first and foremost, we can't know that right now, but what I will say is if you guys check out the testing specs channel in Discord, you'll see what some of those benchmarks have run based off of our framework. Optimization is a very, very heavy priority for us. I hate that studios nowadays don't optimize their games. It's infuriating and shows a lack of self-discipline. If you make a game right and you put effort into optimizations, both for the game itself and for actual client performance, you can do absolutely great. I mean, look at Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It's a recent game. That's what happens when you optimize a game, right? So optimization is a very big concern. The question of will we support older hardware, it is not as simple as flipping a switch, but we are doing very large-scale player testing throughout every step of this process. So we'll know pretty early on what systems will be able to handle this, and also everything will be adjustable. Every quality setting will be adjustable, so at the very least, if you're just playing on an absolute potato, I'd say there's still a pretty good chance you could at least play the game, even if it doesn't look that great. Because I know that some people with their equipment do have to have it that way. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. We had a second one which kind of has a similar answer of we have no idea yet, but someone did ask how big the game is going to be, like how many gigabytes. No clue yet. That's a way down the
There's
line.
no way we can know that right now.
But when we do know, we promise we'll let you know. Okay. Avira actually asked, what systems will usernames use? Well, I typed that wrong. Will it be the Twitter handle route or a digital discriminator or an entirely different system? Will there be a separate display name similar to Discord? I think you've answered this before, that it'll be based on the Steam IP, right? Steam client?
So the way
your
that
Steam
it'll work.
username?
So okay, before we jump the gun, we are using Steam usernames as an identifier, the same way that every Steam game ever does, but your characters will have custom names. Now, whether that'll be a completely custom open box name or if it'll be a required first last like Final Fantasy, we're not 100% sure yet. It's something that we want to pull out for, but you will get to choose your characters' names, and everything game related will be referred to that username or full name, similar to Final Fantasy.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's see. We have 2 more in this category, and there's one in the chat that I do want to bring up just because they asked a question that we just answered, so I will
Sure.
get on that correct, I promise. Let's see. Fast traveling. Okay, somebody asked, will the game have horses or beasts that you can tame and ride for faster travel, like mounts?
There will be horses. I'm working on horses right now for those of you in supporters chat that have seen the updates.
Yippee! Okay, and then someone asked, what is the primary game engine you guys use, and could shaders be implemented at some point, and possibly the addition of ray tracing?
Okay, so shaders. For those of you that don't know what shaders are, let's clear the air. Shaders are not just an add-on. They are specific to the way that omnidirectional lighting or even just single directional lighting is applied and then rendered onto parts of a game, right? So I'm assuming that that's that's in the vein of asking for Minecraft shaders. Those are done because Minecraft's been decompiled a million times over, and no one wants to optimize Java code. Oh my god. But what I will say is that I don't know if you guys have seen the screenshots in the game. We're putting a lot of effort into finding a good balance between a world that looks really good and a world that runs really well. So will there be custom shaders? There's no way that I can promise that. But what I will say is we'll continue to work on the world to make sure it is as pretty as possible while still being performant.
Fantastic. Okay, I just wanted to bring this up to get their question answered because they joined right after we finished talking about the economy.
Sure.
They said, I'm a bit late, but I wanted to ask about the economy. I know that I only purchased food in a game like Township Tale because I didn't want to go out and collect it, but if food became too expensive, I'd go harvest it myself. In a game where everyone can be perfect at anything, why would I buy anything? How will things be sold on the market be better than what I could make or harvest? Great question. Okay, Star just used this as an example, but basically, since everything is like based around the RuneScape skill base, you can make something, but it's not to say that it's going to be as good as somebody who specifically has been training themselves to make something. So the buffs you will get are not as good as what you would get when making them yourself. I feel like, make it too bad and perhaps you'll poison yourself, but that's another conversation. So
There is, you're right.
kind of
So
a
there's
summary on that
definitely
one.
a level, because and I know what you're getting at. If you can just go be perfect at everything, then why would you go to anyone else? You could. It might take you 20,000 hours, but you could go do it if you wanted to. If you want to depend on absolutely nobody, you're welcome to do that. It's going to take an incredible amount of time to be able to do that. So much so that you're better off going to someone who is actively doing that thing or has been doing it as long as you, right? Now, that's not to say that you won't be able to just go and do all those things the same way that you can do that in literally any other MMO. But there are people who do want to specialize, and unless you are planning on playing the game 10 times as many hours as every other person that plays this game, you're not going to be a higher level than all of them in the things that they're specializing in. So
They sent the okay finger emoji, like the nice emoji.
Very cool.
Nice.
right.
Perfect. That was the end of the technical questions that we got in that category.
Twisted
So,
has been holding their hand up for what feels like a millennium, and I applaud your
Twisted, I'm
stubbornness.
sorry
so
for your
please,
arms.
please be my guest.
No, don't worry. I do push-ups. No. So I have a couple questions. Mind you, it's play on some of the stuff I've already heard. Mind you, I'm fairly new. Recently saw you guys' TikTok.
Hey, that's all right.
But
That's fine.
and I gotta say, you guys did a great job on the TikToks. It really pulled me in. But my question there is, you made the comment that you can, or you're working on the ability to go between runes for casting, which I've played in Orbis VR, which was fun. But then you also said voice activated. Now, with that being said, would there be a possibility for those who have the ability to do it, dual casting, doing a rune with one hand and a dash spell by just speaking to move out of the way of a incoming spell?
I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in the other question, but we're experimenting with that right now. Ideally, it would be nice to use both, but the thing that we have to consider, right, and this is very important, is the reason that we would include either is from an accessibility standpoint. And so there comes a level where if someone can't use one or the other, then they are at a permanent and not not rectifiable
Very fair.
disadvantage.
Yeah.
So it's something we're experimenting with. What will probably happen is either one of those will pull from the same mana pool. I don't know what we're gonna do about cooldowns because I'm not a huge fan of spell cooldowns. I think they're silly. But again, that's the biggest consideration. I would just say that we won't know until we kind of flesh that out, especially because that is a primarily accessibility related decision.
So my follow-up question built around that is, because I kind of anticipated that as the answer. Sorry, I had a major lag spike. But with that being said, will you be able to, like you said, you're able to dual wield? Will the magic casters be able to have two wands? You could, in theory, if you are using two wands, you make the voice activation disabled if you have two wands, and you can do two different rune spells to be able to countervent that or make it an even playing field.
So the way that we have magic planned, actually, and I'm glad that you bring that up, is that you have some sort of host of magic, right? Whether it be a staff or a charm, but whatever it is, you're holding it in one of your hands, and the other one is reserved for casting. So you could have two. Would you be able to use them? Not really. And so, you know, a lot of it's like the reason that we have it item based is because we can make those things modular to the individual, right? So if someone wants the same rune charm as somebody else, but it has a fire affinity, and it, you know, that way they have better fire attacks, just by the means of the item, that's something that we can do under that system. I don't see it super foreseeable that you'll be able to have two wands, because it'll be very much you have a honing piece of equipment that allows you to channel and focus and do spells.
Okay. I had another question, but it kind of went away from my head, so you can go to someone else.
That's okay. If you think about it, let us know. William, and then I will get you, Kurumi. You've been a fucking trooper over there. Oh, you're on PC, whatever. Actually, Cable has a hand up, has for a while. Go ahead, William.
Sorry, I have
No,
two
you're-
questions. One of my questions is, when it comes to guilds and clans, will we be able to maybe have like a logo on our clothing so other people know that we're in the same clan?
Oh,
Yes,
that's a good question, and I have a one other one on that later. So perfect. Good question.
So yes, but I know that comes with a follow-up question of, can they be custom? Can we upload them? I don't know yet, because again, there's the question of like image instancing. That being said, logos are not a very expensive thing, especially if you know, under a couple constraints. There are moderation concerns, but not ones that aren't you know, incredibly difficult. So yes, and we'll see what the extent of it is.
Okay. Second question.
Sure.
You said something about horse mountings. Have you ever thought about maybe using horses as like weapons in a way? Of maybe trying
Oh,
to
damn.
use a bow off of a horse or use a sword?
Oh yeah, those will be doable. So the way that the horse framework is set up is to where you are on your horse and you have reins that you can hold, but nothing's stopping you from grabbing a weapon. Now, are you going to be able to use them super effectively on horses? Not nearly as much as if you were standing still. But from the framework perspective, there's nothing stopping you from doing those things. Okay. Cloud, did you have a question? Or you just...
Yeah, but I completely forgot it, so never mind.
I remembered mine.
All right, I'm gonna get. Yeah, let's get you real quick, and then we'll continue down the line.
Okay, so my other question I had that I spaced out on was, I know you were talking about the player food, and I remember hearing the discussion of player housing. I myself don't see myself, just because I was born and raised on a farm, I don't see myself wanting to live in the city. Would I be able to go and find a plot of land outside the city for sale to be able to set up a farm, to be able to grow food and have my own plot of land to develop?
So farming is something that we're working on, but having individual plots of land is a challenge because of world pollution. So one of the things that we talked about in some of the design principles is, what happens if every single player has a plot outside of the main town? Well, you know, to an extent, you've lost explorability of pretty much, you know, what could be the entire map. So it might be one of those things where we try to do maybe instant housing out in the wild, maybe like smaller settlements that people can set up in. But I can't say for certain yet. Housing is one of those big things that we want to get right because we've seen so many people say, "Oh, we're going to do this in housing," and then it completely fails. Now, granted, it's an over promise, right? But they still fail for a reason, and so I want to make sure that we're all ready, to tackle that problem in a way that is reasonable and won't hurt the experience for other people. But like I said, you'll know as soon as I do.
So I like where you're going with the instance based out in the wild. The only game I've ever seen that actually work fairly well was Fallout 76, where your
Nice.
plot of land is there, you can develop it, and you could technically store that portion of the game, like the world development of that client side, if you wanted to save space. That way, it didn't bugger up the server side. But I think that's a really good idea and good routing to try for sure.
It's something that we definitely will have to do a lot of testing with because there are a lot of considerations. But it's definitely something that we are looking into because ideally we want players to be able to have their own place wherever it may be. But again, we won't know until we get to that point.
Okay.
All right, Ron, I don't know if you have your hand up. Okay, then Nico.
Okay.
And then I'll get Cable after.
Yeah, so take Cable in the back there.
Yeah, I see.
I have a couple questions. One was about the food. So say somebody, like say for example me, I started to make food, I built up my craft, and it has those buffs, those good buffs. Am I able to like share with other people, like
yes,
give it out, and it still contain the buffs and all that? Okay.
Yep.
And go ahead. Yeah.
No, you're good. So
Okay.
the mentality was that there should always be an incentivization for other players. The same way that if you have a blacksmith in your party, then he can maintain all of your weapons, and it'll be better if you did it yourself. Or if there was a mage, they could attune your weapons better than you could yourself. So lots of interconnected play there. But go ahead.
My second question is, like, say, are you able to be like sometimes like a bard or the music aspect? Like, some people like to make music into games, and it just brings a little more fun to the thing. Is that maybe?
It's on the list of things we have to experiment with. We'll have to see how realistic it is in VR. It's a lot easier to play music in front of a keyboard. In VR, it might prove a challenge, and so we're gonna have to play around. But I would love to have it. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Cable.
Will there be cat girls?
Well, there, I like that one.
Maybe, maybe. The answer is maybe.
We gotta be careful because people will abuse that so fast.
We might take this somewhere out and just let people add cat ears to their character. I don't know yet.
Oh, good heavens.
All right. Yeah, and tails. Yeah, I get it. All right, Kirby, go ahead. Ridiculous, all of you.
Cable's been waiting for that one, dude. He's holding his hand up for so long.
Yeah. Was it worth the carpal tunnel? Because that's insane.
Yes.
Oh, Sky Children of the Light mentioned. Oh my God. Okay, me and you are friends.
I love that game.
Oh God damn it.
Bro, I want some VR chat.
Okay, so I love Sky Children of the Light. I think, despite the fact that it has predatory business practices, I don't really care for it. But what I will say is that they do have like an incredible multiplayer aspect. They have incredible immersion whenever it comes to zone loading. They have absolutely great ideas whenever it comes to good instancing. She got me one of their art books, as well as like some technical art for the game, some really cool things there, and I've gotten to see a lot of the ways that they make those things possible. So absolutely, yes, 100%, we're thinking about those things.
Also, I have a question from chat whenever we have a pause in the question.
If you want to get the chat question, and then I'm gonna run and grab these guys.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. Luna in the chat said, as a massive OSRS fan, it's my personal favorite game. Since you're looking to use a system in a similar vein to that game, what kind of grind lengths are you considering for skills and such? As much as I love OSRS, the grind in that game to max your account is thousands and thousands of hours, even at high efficiency. I'd love to be able to give various skills a shot, but I would hate for the grind to be so long that it almost feels unreasonable to consider doing various skills as opposed to only relying on others. I do like the idea of relying on other people for the sake of a player-driven economy, but it would be nice to feel like I don't have to sink in literally thousands of hours into the game if I personally want to work on my own skill set.
Phenomenal question. Can anybody here tell me what is the worst part about grinding in an MMO?
Doing the same thing
No
over and
skills.
over again.
It sucks.
It's boring. It's boring. It's the most boring that you go and you press a button and then you rinse and repeat, right? I'm max level paladin in Final Fantasy. It is the most boring thing ever to level those things up, right?
Paladin.
Why? Because they're so uninvolved. And so whenever we were making this game, whenever I was planning for it, one of the things that I told myself is we want to make the experience fun enough to where it does not feel like you're grinding. More so to where you're not focused on grinding, right? So like I know blacksmith, big example. I love the blacksmithing example because everyone loves blacksmithing apparently. But the blacksmithing example, right? So I'm a blacksmith. The experience of blacksmithing, like for me, should be so enjoyable and so non-replicated that I am more focused on the fun of blacksmithing than I am unlocking things. And so whenever I do finally unlock that new thing, I go, wow, this is sweet, and not, thank God I just spent 60 hours grinding to get it, you know? And so I think, of course, a lot of it's going to come down to player testing because we won't know what is palatable until we actually put players through the ringer. But if there gets to a point where it feels like a player is grinding, yes, that is a question of length, but it's also a question of engagement. And we want to address that at the source because ideally, a grind shouldn't feel like a grind in this game. It should feel like you were just doing the normal things that you've been doing because they're enjoyable to do.
Very nice. Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Minty, you have a question?
I was just gonna ask: would there be a chance of like art stuff being implemented in the game?
Ooh,
You know,
I have a question too.
I haven't really considered it up until like a couple of weeks ago, and then since then I've been playing around with ways to make that happen in game. So short answer, we're experimenting with it. If we see that it's a reasonable thing that a bunch of people want to do, then absolutely we will find a way to implement it. Up front.
I just kind of wanted to prove Twisted was weak. You can keep going.
All right, Crazily, you're up.
It's a bit of like a specific question, but will there like be fishing involved in this game? Because I love fishing. And, like,
you will be
most
able to
games.
fish.
Oh
It's
yeah.
fun.
There will be a whole line of fishing and fishing skills and fishing related things. Don't you worry.
And we are discussing the implementation.
Yes.
Digital Life, great friend of mine. What's up?
Oh shit, I was muted. Yeah, they were holding their hand up for me. I'm sorry, but
Oh no, that's good.
my question is involving player data saving. So,
Sure.
how will that work? Will people like have to, I don't know, go to a save house or something to save their player data, or can they just exit the game and then boom, it's automatically saved, or is there?
We want it to be intuitive. Now there is a level of like iterativeness that we have to be careful about because if we are playing, or if we're saving player data anytime any little thing happens, there becomes a problem of database strain, right? So right now our general approach is that, there will be a set flag events that will cause a save. Just for the sake of like not losing progress. But most of the things that you have, like your inventory and your experience and your level, those are all handled on the server. So that's a thing that happens automatically, right? The way that it works is whenever you load in, all of that information is pulled from the server. Your character is loaded from the server. Whenever it comes to things that will be saved, it'll be things like player settings or like certain UI elements or like graphic settings. Like that's really the most that you'd have to worry about saving. And like I said, those flaggable events will be like entering or exiting a menu or like exiting out of the game, like you said. But in terms of character stuff, you don't have to worry about that. That's all handled on the server. Oop. Watch out, Golden. You're covering his text box. I thank you. Depends on the pre-made weapon, right? Ideally, there should be some sort of, as long as it's not crafted, or even there is the open door for crafting being a part of that lore, right? But obviously, for some of the things that you can find out in the field, there should be lore to it. At the very least, the best stories are ones that happen while you're playing, right, and not ones that are told to you. So ideally, you are more likely to, um, have some goblin throw, I don't know, his sword or something at, his squad leader by accident and kill him. And that is something that would, if we can set up the systems that we want to, would be something that would be, included, whether it be in like item notes or, a bit of side text. Um, I think that the idea of having like items with lore that are gotten from the Great Goblin King are cool, but if they're replicable to every player, they become a lot less important. So we're kind of experimenting with how we can make some of the things that you get on your specific experience individual to you. Just how we were talking about unique-ish weapons earlier. So that's where I'll leave that for now. But that's not to say that we won't have more of those traditional weapons.
I have a quick request from chat. In the future for the text ones, can we read those out before we answer them? Just because some people are having trouble,
Sure.
like they either seeing or they're listening to it in the background.
Katsuki, if you're having trouble, just go ahead and type what you need to. Golden, go ahead.
What?
You're good, Golden.
I wasn't raising my.
I feel like you have been for like the last 20 minutes.
I think he just had his hand just resting there.
Yeah, I have it
Okay.
resting on my knee.
Yeah, it's like wave in the air for us. Okay. Okay. Katsuki's got more. Okay. Cool. Just make sure I'm not missing hands. All right, Gino. I know you love questions. Let's get it.
I'm a curious person. Anyway, this is for the people who love character creation and all that.
Sure.
For incentive to try out different races, are there going to be certain buffs or debuffs for each class? Like elves are like better at archery or magic and stuff like that, and are humans like better in certain climates? Are orcs physically more powerful? Stuff like that.
It is an idea that we're experimenting with, but if it throws the balance of the gameplay off too much, it might be something we omit. Though, let it be known and let it be said that we have gotten the suggestion many, many a time, and me and my design team are figuring out what would be the most narratively realistic for a world like this. And then once that happens, then we can move on to the discussion of, what should different races do? What abilities do they have, or advantages do they have over other races in specific instances? So like I said, as soon as you know, or as soon as we know, you will.
Cool.
Okay. What's up, Twisted?
So, couple questions. I know horses were a topic. Are we thinking along the lines of, are we going to go out in the wild, capture, be able to tame it, raise it up by riding it to get, let's say, faster speed on the mount, can jump higher, and then breeding said animal with a female to male ratio to try to perform and get better mounts in the game to sell as well?
So the thing about mounts, and especially in the context of this game, is specifically for the way that we have the world planned, mounts are a means to an end and not the other way around. So are raising mounts a thing that we would consider? Sure. Are breeding and selling them on the table? Not right now. Maybe not for the foreseeable future. If that changes, you guys will know. But like I said, I'm doubtful right now. It just, it's pretty detractful from the actual gameplay loop. And the good thing about mounts is that they serve a means to get you from one part of the gameplay loop to the next. So, I'll leave it at that for now. If things change, you'll know. But I'm doubtful as of right now.
Okay. And my next question would be, like, I haven't seen a map of the game entirely, or I doubt a lot of people have, but oceans. Are we landlocked, or are we going to have the ability to, let's say, hire some carpenters, blacksmiths, build me a boat, rig it with some cannons, fight the krakens, sea monsters, and stuff like that?
I don't know about boats with cannons. Boats are on the list of things that we are working on implementing, as well as seeing the extents of boats with cannons. I'm not sure. I don't know if we're going to go that far. What's up, William? Oh, by the way, just real quick, as soon as we get to the wall right here, we're gonna keep going with listed questions, and then we'll
I was
have
gonna
more
say I
time to.
also have a list of questions from the chat as well that have come through, but I'm waiting.
Awesome. Okay.
So yeah.
William, what's up?
Sorry, I have a lot of small questions.
Sure.
When it comes to fishing, are you able to use a knife and like just stab them while they're in the water? Maybe like a spear of some sort?
You can, but that won't increase your fishing skill. It'll increase your knife skills.
Okay, fair enough.
And hunting.
Second question. When it comes to horses, again, will there be different kinds of breeds that are good at different things?
Like I said, right now I'm doubtful. The level at which we'll experiment with mounts is not certain yet. But again, they're just a means to an end. Now, is that to say we don't want it to be possible to have, the ability to get better mounts? I mean, sure, that'd be great, but in the context of what they are and what they're used for, will it make much of a difference? We don't know yet.
Okay, that was it.
Okay. Cloud, did you have a question? Okay. Nico?
So, say there's like dungeons and you need to like a party to go and you don't. Will there be a thing like instant queuing, or
no?
No, you would have to go physically and try to recruit some people to go do a dungeon. Okay.
Yep.
Thank
You
God.
get with you and your buddies, or you go sit in town and throw a poster up and do a dance for some
Okay,
gold or for some arms or something. All right, Ghosty, go ahead.
I'll be a cat girl.
So I just had a couple of questions about the housing. So I was wondering, when it comes to the housing, so say you buy. So I imagine there's gonna be multiple servers, correct?
We don't know what it's going to look like yet.
Okay.
But I don't think that housing is going to be instance between servers. I don't think that that's realistic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So like you have like one house and it wouldn't vary between servers. And I was just thinking, like, say, like you have a house, could you like potentially just use it as kind of like a spot for like say like your own guild or something like that?
So the question for those of you that didn't hear it is, will you be able to use houses for things like guilds? Right now, not really. But we are experimenting with guild halls, which is the correct way to implement something like that. Now, whether those will be instance or fully customizable, we don't know yet. But we plan on having buildings specifically for guilds, so you don't have to use your personal abode for it.
All right.
All right, Butter.
So, going back to like the mounts and stuff, I know how you talked about how weapons can be used while you're riding them. I also remember that whenever you talked about weapons that they can give like some sort of status effects, like not being knocked out, but stunning. And you said that's going to be related to acceleration. Would the acceleration or the speed of the horse be added on to how hard you swing your weapon?
It's possible. It's possible. Especially if we're doing it calculated just based off of like base velocity. I don't see that being far fetched. If anything, it might even happen without any extra overhead. All right, Tessa, go ahead.
My hand hurts. Okay, second thing. Will there be like luck? If I just stab dunk luck, can I get like crit chance? 'Cause that's my favorite playstyle in games. I just want to crit everything.
Can you repeat that pretty please? Because you didn't really come through there.
I want to crit everything. Will there be like a crit system?
Oh, crit everything? Yeah, there will be a crit system, but will you be able to just crit everything all the time? No. It's called a crit for a reason. If all your hits are crits, then technically none of them are, right?
Well, if I dump everything to luck and be a swashbuckler, I'll just dodge everything.
Dump everything into what?
Whatever levels up crit, like barony or something. It's crit system.
Hey guys, who here remembers us talking about skill points earlier? Will there be skill points that you can allocate into certain skills?
No.
No, there will not be. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Fred, go ahead.
I just wanted to prove that Twisted was still weak.
I just wanted to bring
Yeah.
attention to it.
It fell asleep.
Okay, cool. All right, Carson, let's go through some of those chat questions.
Okay, yes. So Cracktail said OSRS started as a chat room with background game mechanics. Are you using the chat and grind concept in the map layout and leveling?
Sorry. Say that one more time, pretty please.
So sorry, was I too fast there for a minute?
No, you're okay. You're good.
OSRS started as a chat room with background game mechanics. Are you using the chat and grind concept in the map layout and leveling?
I'm not the most familiar with OSRS, so I can't say for certain. But what I can say is that there is a very large focus on social interaction that precludes social mechanics, right? And I know that's a lot of fluff talk. What I mean by that is that a lot of the areas that we built are set up in a way to where you're more likely to interact with a player, not just socially, but mechanically, right? So one of the big things that I noticed in a lot of other VR MMOs is that you can go from a very major building and walk outside and there's nothing of interest, and that's problematic. The idea is that, the main town is so nestled and, packed with ways to see other players that you're going to interact with them a lot more likely. Now, is that to say that we're prioritizing like just plain social experiences? No. I think the social experiences will happen naturally as the result of a good layout and a good mechanical system. Hopefully that answers the question. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with OSRS, but
Gotcha. Okay, next question. Somebody asked if there would be different types of bait to make it easier to catch specific types of fish or increase
Yes.
chances of finding rare ones. Thought so.
Yes.
So that was a quick answer. And then someone asked if there would be the One Piece. That one's not like super relevant. And let's see. As far as jobs go, would a player need to go through blacksmithing and some form of enchantment skill development to do arcane weaponry or armor?
I don't know how deep we want like multi-rolling to be right now. There are a lot of considerations, and I would love to get to a point where we can do that. But that's one of those way down the line things, especially with how much we
Right.
have planned for those individual roles.
Of course. Next question. What's the progression going to be like? Is it level based? So I think this is the skills question we kind of had earlier.
It is.
But they were asked what grinding levels would like, and it's just doing the thing, basically.
You do the
Right.
thing, but the thing should be fun enough to where it doesn't feel like grinding. That's the mentality.
Right. Our good friend Wine is actually tuned in, and he asked, will quest weapons be locked at its quote-unquote level, or can it be enchanted past as it was given or altered?
Great question. So we are considering possibilities with taking a weapon and at its best making it better. Whether that is going to happen through smithing or enchanting, or attributes or charms, we are not sure. But it is something that we're very interested in doing. Because I very much like the idea of you being able to take a weapon and, a weapon that you really like, mind you, and not have to throw it away because it's just, not good enough, because of what it is or what level you got it at, whatever, right? So those are things that we're experimenting with. What that looks like isn't exactly decided, but it's definitely on the list.
Okay, fantastic. That one was answered inadvertently. Someone said, will guilds have unlimited membership, or will the guild need to build and expand its hall to make room for members? I think that one is kind of hard for us to answer right now. We've kind of said before that guilds, while they're on our list of things we absolutely want to be in the game, we're still kind of exploring how that's going to look like in the game.
Yeah, no. You
Sorry
have
for
it on the
answering
money.
that one on top of you. But
No, it's okay. So that question implies that guild halls that are expandable are a thing, and that's something that I can't answer yet. So I would just say that it's on the list, but to promise that it will be in the game is a bit foolish right now.
yes, to answer Minty's question, no, there is no class system. We talked about that one earlier. Gearless Drew asked, will they be cracking down on in-game items traded for IRL money? Any game I've played where this becomes a big part of the game, it tends to ruin most, if not all, of the game.
I'll find you. It's not hard to do.
Oh my god.
These are not hard things to figure out. So for a real answer, that is a pretty big problem with a lot of big games. These are things that can be watched for, that can be called out, that can be snuffed out at sources. If you know how to do it right, it's been done before. A lot of times, developers and teams don't do it because to them it's not worth their time. I disagree. I think it's 100% worth our time, and we will be investing in those methods to make sure that the player experience remains genuine.
Perfect. That answers all of the chat questions, and then of course we still have a little under half of the document left for submitted questions to the forum.
Okay, let's get through some submitted ones, and then we'll do another round.
Okay, perfect. We are now in the category of design and world building, which is like visuals, characters, NPCs, story and lore, etc. Someone asked, will there be floors in Asteria similar or like the ones that were in Sword Art Online? Short answer, no. There will not be. Next, this one was kind of touched on earlier when it came to artists. Thank you, Minty, for asking that question. I'm not sure if you're still here, but someone asked, will we have the ability to paint armor? Like, would it be possible to give players the option to paint or make decals to put on their armor? They could use some kind of painting station or go to artists who have set up shop in the market to get something done that is fully personal to them or their guild/group/party. This could also open the market up to artists who want to sell their services as banner or armor painters.
We don't know, just because it's something that falls right into the artist group, but we don't know. And if it ends up that we do actually allow like the whole art role to be a thing, then it's very possible that we work to to make that integrated. The problem is just individualization means like weird instancing for any player, and so there's the question of networking, there's the question of caching for other players, there's the question of file size, for textures. All of that's going to make a difference, but we won't know until we explore the actual art avenue as a whole.
Someone said King Spray Graffiti and Asteria in the chat. Okay, so this one I think the answer is yes, the goal is yes for this, but is there a possibility of being a wandering smith, like the ability of having smaller carrying options to offer on the field repairs with less advanced buffs? It could be fun to wander the plains to help newbies by sharpening their blades or bring in fun hunting mechanics for raids, so yes, that is on our list. Someone asked something that we might not actually have the answer to yet fully, but how large do you plan on making the world within Asteria? And what should we expect when it comes to the map and the detail?
Large enough to where you're not feeling trapped, and I care very much about a detail-ridden world, but that is definitely a down-the-line question.
Okay. Someone asked if you'll be able to go inside of buildings, how many towns can we expect in the game, and if they can interact with doors and go inside and, be able to be in different villages and towns.
I think that buildings that need the ability to have players inside of them will, but to make every building enterable just for the sake of having every building enterable is terrible from a performance standpoint. Though I can say that you can expect at least a good handful of different towns with different personalities, people, general economic roles, etc.
Okay. Sorry, I saw someone in the chat say that they had their hand up for 30 minutes. Dear heavens. Hoax, where are you? Hand up, fell asleep. Okay.
No, it's gone.
Oh, okay. Someone in chat asked, will dual abilities be a thing? Like a duo move I can only cast if my friend is also casting it, which makes it bigger or cooler or whatever it might be. That's a cool question.
We're experimenting with specifically magic systems, because I know that Blade and Sorcery had a really cool one, at least from a single player, and we'd love to translate that, but we're experimenting with it is the best answer I can give right now.
Fantastic. Okay, guys, bear with me. I have 2 more left inside of this category. Our materials for things like cooking, smithing, etc. are going to be based off of real-world materials, more unique to Asteria, or a combination of both. They said, I'm mostly curious from the plants and cooking perspective, but also curious in general. And if materials are based on real-world materials, would they have the same properties? For example, since lavender and valerian help with sleep, could they potentially be used as an ingredient in a sleep potion or something? I love this question.
Yes,
good
and
question.
yes, we have people that we're talking to that are specific experts in all of these fields, and that'll help us make good decisions regarding actual real uses for a lot of these items, tools, the methods of which you're crafting them, etc. Like I said, I'm talking to a few artisans that are skilled in their own right, and that'll be a big part of that.
Perfect. Last question, and while you're answering, I'm going to answer someone in the chat. But will you be incorporating dynamic or AI integrated systems into the NPCs?
We are not having AI integrated features in our NPCs. You guys can quote me on that. We're not putting AI in our NPCs. I don't like it. That being said, we want to build them out in a way that makes them feel natural and advanced, but we will not be doing that with generative AI. I don't like that. I think it's soulless. So we can just cross that one off now. That being said, we are going to spend a lot of work on the enemy like controllers, just to make sure that everything feels natural and purposeful. Like they can think, even if they can't. So.
Absolutely. The next section is socialization and multiplayer. So if you guys have questions on that, I would save it for the next section, just in case, because we have some questions in there.
We'll
Okay,
do a
go
quick
ahead.
round. Minty, your avatar is blocked out for me. Do you have your hand up? Okay, cool. Just making sure. Let's see. Nerfed, what's up?
So this is about earlier. So
Sure.
is there going to be a way you're going to stop? So let's say I go to a merchant, right? And I ask, or I pay for a really good katana, and they give me an absolute shit one, and I can't do anything about it. Is there going to be a way to stop scamming?
Yes. So, one of the things that we talked about whenever we considered a lot of the, multiplayer aspects is, people talked about a rating system. We're not going to do a rating system. That still opens the door for people to get gypped. The thing that will always be possible is that from a level of like just materials gone into something. So let's say that you come to me, I'm a blacksmith, and you want me to make you a sick ass katana, and I just completely fuck it up, right? We're experimenting with options for rectification, but the big one is that you can just including the gold. Right now, again, there need to be conversations about this to avoid economy inflation. But you can, including the gold, break down that sword to its bare parts and just go to a different blacksmith. Or alternatively, we might even implement a system where you can just deny a final product outright. But again, there are caveats for the other player as well. So we're experimenting with systems that'll work, but rest assured, we're not going to let a player just get fucked over.
Yes, you're not gonna allow people to like even on the other side. If I'm a merchant and somebody tries to buy a sword and I make it really well, and then just deny it and just walk out, and I just have a sword I can't do anything with now.
And you've wasted time. Yeah, no, I get it.
And
Well,
I've wasted
okay,
time
so
and money, and yeah.
So slight thing is you can always sell to NPCs. And what we'll probably do on that side is if something was meant for a player, it'll sell to NPCs as if it was going to be sold to a player. There are absolute checks to protect vendors in that case, but we want to make sure that we pick a system that is fair to everybody and also doesn't leave the door open for just mindless attacks. And also exploiting systems like that will even if people try to do it within the bounds that we set, be something that we will ban you for. There's that. But
Yeah, thank you.
again, that's a later
That's all I
discussion. Okay. Demi, you have a question? No. Gino, what's up, Gino?
So, I just realized this, and I hate to ask it, but and this is a two-part question. First part: can certain vendors own little buildings for their shops and all that?
We don't know yet. It's something that I absolutely want to have happen, but we don't know yet.
Cool. If you do manage to do that, are there going to have to be a gold upkeep in order to be able to keep that building?
Maybe. We'll see as time goes on, because if we end up fleshing out the idea of having buildings outside of town, then it might not be the case. But for anything in town, I think it's very possible that there is an upkeep, even if it is relatively cheap.
Okay,
It
cool.
would prevent
I was
players from basically sitting on property forever and never.
Yeah, I just like as this was going on, I was thinking like, wow, if people buy up all the property, and not have taxes, they're gonna.
There's a
I
whole
hate
level
talking about
of
how much
avoiding housing crises or crises in games. Anyone here who has played Final Fantasy knows how hard as hell it is to get a house. I'm still trying to get mine after years, and we want to avoid that, especially because people aren't in those houses 99% of the time. So I can't see what your question or what your name is because you were in the wing. Hey, Crackdo, what's your question?
Hello. So in all the interesting information, I kind of lost the category, but my question specifically on resources and map layouts.
Oh,
And
perfect. You're in the right section.
Fantastic. So specifically, I wanted to ask if resources, like things you would go out and harvest, i.e., mining or collecting fruits and herbs, or like collecting runes and things like this, are those going to be in certain sections in clusters for you to go there and harvest and work on your skills in harvesting, or will they be dispersed around the entirety of the map in locations that you'd expect to find them?
It depends. So, I think that especially, and I know that's you kind of gave two options, and the answer is both. So whenever we talk about like, let's say mining nodes, for example, sure, you are going to find them in caves more often than not. But you will probably also find them in sediments. You will find them spread across the world. That's not to say that there won't be a collection of them, right? If you want to go and find something, you'd be better off going to a specific location and looking for it. But that's not to say that you won't find mining nodes just walking around, that you can gather from. So, I'd say that it comes down to just kind of how we want to populate some of these areas, but you can expect to see both of those.
All right. As a little bit of a follow up to that, say like
Sure.
we're sticking with mining.
Mhm.
I know that there's this cave that I go to, and there's an iron node inside of the cave. Would it be that that iron node is always there, but sometimes it doesn't have any resource in it? Or would it be that I know I can find an iron node inside of this cave, I just don't know where inside of this cave the iron node is?
Great question, and I'll do you one better. It will depend on the material. So take a deer, for example. If there are deer in the game, you will never kill a deer and not get meat from it. I think that's a very dumb concept that a lot of games push. The actual scarcity comes from the existence of the deer, right? You will never see a physical node of iron and not be able to get iron from it. The question is, are there nodes there? So a lot of it's going to come down to whether or not it exists, like whether the possibility to get it exists in the first place. But it will not be a chance-based drop, right? It won't be you clearly see a thing of iron, you go to mine it, and you don't get any iron from it. I think that's dumb. We want to put that to rest. All right, Rocky, just to make sure, do you have a question? I'm assuming Infernal has one. So if you don't, then we'll get them next. Take that as a yes. Yes. Okay, so we haven't talked about
we should
career
read that
yet.
out loud.
So will there be in-game jobs that function beyond just crafting, like being a town guard, courier, or bard? We talked about bards earlier. We are experimenting with them. So town guard's the one that we are experimenting with the most because there are a lot of opportunities there. But short answer, yes, it's something that we're looking into and we want to develop further. So William,
I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question because haven't really talked about structures or like owning shops very much.
Sure.
But when it does come to owning shops, say I were to leave one server and go to another, what if one person in there had the same shop as me?
if you leave one server and go to another, you're visiting and your shops don't exist there.
Okay. I also have one more question about the shops.
Sure.
Will it be presets like counters in the shop, or will I be able to customize that fully?
We don't know yet, but I want to err on the side of it's probably going to be probably a little bit modular. Will it be fully customizable? I can't ever guarantee that, at least not in this stage. Cloud, do you have a question? Just want to be sure. Okay, cool. Want to make sure I'm not missing people here. That skeleton moved.
Neutral over here on this side, like on the far side, has a question. They're like right above Jester.
Yeah, I'll get them whenever we get over here.
Okay, fantastic.
All right, Ace, go ahead. I will get you eventually, I promise. I can't hear you if you're talking, friend.
Hold on, he's switching.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So I wasn't here earlier. I had to go, but I don't know if you, but like clothing, like say if you want Kirito's cloak in there, like could you put it over armor or something, like as like, and have it no buffs or actual.
We're experimenting with vanity clothing. Yeah, I mean it's not a particularly hard thing to implement, but like layered clothing, layered equipment, that's something that we're working on. All right, Ron, do you have a question? I thought I saw your hand up. No. Okay. Scyther, Rachni, I'm gonna get you because I'm pretty sure you moved. I'll just get you while you're there, and then we'll move on.
I don't know if this has already been asked, but oh crap, my mind went blank. No shit. Hold on, go to someone else. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Okay, we'll come back to you.
That just happened to me.
Scyther's question. Nico, what's up?
So one of my questions is, will there be like, say there's a lake, will you be able to like do some swimming physics in there? Like you have to move your arms to swim down, and if I'm guessing there's gonna be like breath system, like you got to go back up. Just breathe on.
Yes and yes.
And then Butter right next to them.
Go ahead, Butter.
So, with the housing, will there be? This is kind of like a two-part question. Will there be a limited amount of houses you can buy?
Like for the individual or for the
For
player
if
base as a
for
whole?
yeah, for one person, could I buy multiple houses?
No, you can have one house.
Okay, then that.
Housing is already hard enough to deal with, especially for scarcity in games. You cannot have multiple homes, at least not if they're instanced like we think that they will be, like instanced in town spots. If that is the case and that's the only implementation of housing that we have, no, you cannot have more than one.
Okay, then that completely negates my second question.
Okay. All right. Question over here. Yeah, Nate, did it go away? Okay. All right, Rachni, you remembered what you were gonna ask?
Yeah. Will loot be shared, meaning like everyone gets the same thing, or will it be like Diablo and everyone has different loot and you can't steal each other's loot?
So, I don't think it's going to be either of those systems. I think we're more likely to take a Final Fantasy approach, where if there is loot, people can cast ballots for it, depending on what they would need it for, what roles they typically fall under. Because then it allows the players to decide what the best route for that would be, right? So if let's say that, I'm a warrior and Carson's a mage, and a wand appears in like our loot collective, I don't need that. So I could just pass on that, and then she could vote for it and get it. Those systems aren't hard to implement. It's probably the easiest way to do it, but we won't have it to where every single person will always get the same loot every time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Demi, let me get you real quick.
Okay, so someone had brought up like swimming and underwater stuff.
Sure.
For people that have fears of like thalassophobia, arachnophobia, will there be accessibility things, or will there be like underwater fights or enemies that some people can't partake in because of their fears? What's going on with that?
So I actually planned a fight where you fight a spider with wings underwater. No, I'm just kidding. So for everything that we have in the game, we want to add a lot of accessibility options. I'm working with around a dozen people specifically who have accessibility problems and varying fears. So we can try to hammer out as many of those as possible. Like we want the experience to be customizable. The last thing that I want is there to be a piece of content that someone just cannot engage with under any circumstances because of something out of their control. that doesn't really align with what we're trying to do here. And so if there's anything that we can do to circumvent that, we will. Now, obviously, there are some exceptions, right? If you have a fear of goblins or something, I don't know if I can help you there. There will be a lot of goblins in this game, but
You
at the
probably
very
shouldn't be
least, we
playing a
will.
Final Fantasy game if that's the case.
You're probably not. But we will do everything that we can to accommodate accessibility, even if it means that we have to iterate and do it after release, or add more after release than we've already added, because that's one of those things that I really do want to crack down on. What's up, Digital?
We have. Oh, okay. No, go ahead. Oh, Neutral has a question.
What's up, Neutral?
Okay, so I can kind of backtrack here. With guilds, will there be like a certain like limited amount of guilds that are be able to have in like a certain region?
Not particularly, but there is a pretty large barrier for entry for guilds. You will need to be at a certain point in any path. You will need to have a certain number of gold. You will need to have a certain number of people sign off on your guild, right? Like other players that want to be a part of it. So there probably won't be a limit to the amount of guilds that there can be, but they will be pretty heavy regulated. I don't think that there will be too many of them under that system.
Alright, that sounds great.
All right, Crazily, you have one too, or?
Yeah, it's a follow-up question to that. Would a player be able to be in like multiple guilds, or is it just like one guild a player?
It'll probably just be one guild a player. Having a player in multiple guilds, especially if there's any kind of like economic mechanics that we might want to implement, it'll complicate it way too much. Costas, go ahead. We're gonna get Costas, and then we're gonna go through listed questions, and then I promise we'll make another round at the end.
Right. Considering distribution after killing a mob like a goblin or something, let's say I hit Socks for 90 HP out of his 100, and someone else deals 10 damage. Does the loot distribute the same amount on both people, or is it distributed per what we did?
Okay, so it won't do it just based off of percentages, but there's a really cool thread about this, called like I think it's something relating to player experience. But I actually list out our formulas for experience distribution based off of contributions, based off of like a threshold of you contributed to this fight. That will apply. That same system will apply. I will make a link to it in general, but you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It won't be so much to where like if one person does 90 and another person does 10, they'll get 90% of the loot. It'll probably be in that instance they get 100% of the loot. But let's say that it's like, I don't know, 50 or 60, it'll pretty much be the same. It's very hard to split items by percentages, but we have the whole formula listed out, so you can go look at that if you want.
All right, thank you.
Me.
Yep.
Okay, great. So we're gonna move into the socialization and multiplayer aspect, which we've touched on a lot of this so far, just kind of in various questions in each round. But this is like raids, PvP, markets and housing, guilds, etc. So we just talked about a lot of that. But first question in that category was, how will guilds work? Will guilds be able to have a fund system where they'll be able to share currency? Will there be items to help your guild, like tools, weapons, buffs, etc., etc.?
As I mentioned earlier, we don't know yet. We want to give guilds a pretty thorough implementation, but what that looks like isn't exactly clear, especially because we're taking a really non-traditional approach to a lot of these MMO mechanics. But as soon as we decide on those things to give them a try through testing, you guys will know.
Absolutely. Next question. This is actually by someone who's in the Discord chat, but they submitted it and they asked it again in the chat because they weren't sure if we got to it. So, right on. They said, is PvP going to be open world or duel based? If the latter, will rollback code be considered for the duels? How will PvP deal with lag and ping, basically?
So that is a PvP implementation problem that, again, we won't know until we set up our physics, right? Because that'll determine things like weight, attacks, collisions, levels of force, velocity, weight handling, spring damper calculations. I mean, all of that goes to network and then goes to PvP, so we won't know. What I can answer, however, is if we do implement PvP, there will be one of two systems, maybe both. Obviously, we want duels, Those can be done anywhere by 2 agreeing parties, and then we also are considering having players mark themselves as PvP anywhere, which means that they can be out in the world and get attacked or attack other people that have PvP marked. But there will be incentives for that. Players will get better rewards or have certain buffs because of it. So, that'll just depend on the direction that we take, but we've considered it. In terms of the actual, rollback code or how physics handling will change things, we can't know that right now. There's no way to.
Right on. That kind of sort of answers the next one as well. Someone asked how
Okay.
PvP will feel. They said, will it have physics? I hate when there's an arm delay when a player swings their arm too much. I like the way that the game, quote unquote, until you fall feels. What about that? Pretty much kind of in the same realm of that answer.
Right.
Also, swinging their arm too much, we're not going to let wiggle swinging happen, or wiggle, what's it called? What the word I'm looking for? I'm so tired. Hold on.
Like just being able to just kind of swing your sword around and have it do good damage.
Yes, thank you. I wasn't sure if there was a term for it, but yeah. So we're gonna try to make sure that doesn't happen because it's not realistic. Someone asked, how will long distance communication work? Will there be communication via DM, email, letters, carrier pigeons, etc.?
We'll probably allow for delayed messages, whether it be through birds. There will not be real-time long-distance voice communication. Discord exists. That's an extra network overhead that we don't need, and we won't be implementing it as a feature in the game.
Neat. Someone said, in regard to combat, will we be able to parry in both enemies and PvP?
Yes, and maybe. The second one I don't know yet.
Fantastic. Someone asked if this is actually, I really like this question. Someone asked, will there be cool gestures for adding friends or forming temporary parties? For example, you could high five or a fist bump or a head bump and you can group up.
Yes. I think as poor and experienced Rec Room can be sometimes, Rec Room actually does a really good job of making social interaction commands be something that you do physically, and I love that idea, and we will work to implement it.
Fantastic. This one was kind of already answered earlier because someone had asked, will we be able to run our own shops or market booths? Can we take our own items and put it up for sale without trading? Yes, that's the goal. Okay. Will there be support and moderators for questionable behavior from others within the game?
Yes. We're going to have a set of guidelines that players have to follow, and if they don't, we'll moderate accordingly. I mean, we already talked about the whole game master thing where certain people are in charge of moderating and making sure that people are not being bad actors. But those are things that we will moderate because I want to make sure that it's not an experience that is ruined by others and for stupid reasons.
Nice. Okay. So this one, I think we have answered this one in the Ask the Devs chat, but someone asked if there would be names on crafted items. Can a person's name be tagged onto a crafted item like in Final Fantasy XIV? I would love for myself and other crafters to be recognized by just having a little tag or box in a corner with our usernames showing who crafted the item. Kind of like the sword signatures we discussed with blacksmithing.
Yeah, that already exists in the current build. Now, will we take the extra mile and do emblems like some people want? It's the same problem with guild emblems. So the short answer is we'll see. But signatures on weapons are already implemented.
Very nice. And then someone asked a question that quite frankly, we have no answer to yet. It is way too early in alpha to know. But they did ask what the server size is and how many players are able to be in one server at a time. So
yeah, we can't know that right now. I will say that we've seen other games try to implement higher numbers to varying degrees of success. Ideally, our number will be hundreds. There's no way that we can hit thousands. At least not without just some absolute technological breakthrough, or I don't know, maybe Sleepy or JT over at UXR just hands me a golden key to it. But I'm very doubtful that we'll hit those kinds of numbers. Hundreds is the number that we're shooting for here.
Fantastic. That was the last one in the socialization and multiplayer round of questions. And we only have a few questions left. It's 2 questions in sound and design and 2 fun questions that are not related to the game. game as
All right,
much.
good. We'll do a big round because I run the risk of my headset dying. So we're gonna knock out some player questions and then we'll
Absolutely.
roll it through. Minty, do you have a question or are you tweaking? I'll take that as a no. Okay.
Someone did say the purring from someone's VRC character is quite loud in the the broadcast.
Let's see. All right, Nerfed, what's up?
So this is about a question from
Sure.
XP distribution, right? So what happens with supports then? So let's say like you're in like a dungeon and the first like 20 enemies are super easy and the DPS just wipe them out without any support or anything. Do you just get screwed on the XP then for like the first half of it, or what?
Do me a favor. You're gonna like the answer to this. Go read the thread. I implore all of you to go read the thread. I promise you it will alleviate your fears. Golden, what's up? Or are you still just resting your hand? Okay, Rackney, what's up?
Is the game gonna have an anti-cheat?
Oh, I was about to get him to answer your question. Perfect.
We will not have an anti-cheat in the traditional sense where you have to install a secondary program that slows down your computer. We will never have a kernel level anti-cheat. The way that we want to implement anti-cheating measures is by frameworking our client-side functions to make sure that they are foolproof and then letting the server be the source of authority, right? So for anybody here that knows anything about development or networking, you know that if something is server authoritative, then unless there are specific methods allowed by the person who makes the game to make decisions or to change values on behalf of a player to the server, then it's not really a big problem, right? When you server off a game, it makes it a lot harder for cheating to happen in general. The only thing that could really happen is like someone can move their hands super fast using a program, but we can also just check for that. It's not very hard to do. So no, we will not have a traditional anti-cheat.
Okay.
Though I will know if you're cheating. I promise you I will. What's up, William? If you're talking, I can't hear you, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, I had to switch to app chat. I know you guys were talking about PvP stuff and how there might not be PvP, but if there is, can we expect to have some sort of PvP sport that happens every once in a while, where people can
Yes.
partake in duels?
If we can make PvP work to the level that we want to, I think that's a phenomenal idea. So yes.
Okay, cool. That was it.
All right, Costas, if you have one, you're technically slightly the first. Okay, Astro, what's up? And then I'll get you after, Correcto.
Hi, sorry. I have a couple questions. So first one being, when it comes to kind of crafting and gathering like skills and things like that, will there be specific gear sets that improve those skills while you have the gear equipped and things like that?
Yes, that is something that we're currently playing around with.
Cool. Then
in the same vein that having specific armor makes it harder for you to take damage. You know, ideally for certain roles or jobs, you have clothing that is more utility than anything. It doesn't just make things easier, but it opens utility. So, like for gathering, you might have a much larger pouch or even a second pouch attached to you that's right in front of you that you can just pull or place items from. In the same way of blacksmithing, you might have a belt with 4 or 5 slots, so you can grab a varying number of tools on you at any time. There are a bunch of possibilities, and we're experimenting with a bunch of them right now.
Okay, great. So my second question, kind of leading on from that, is are there going to be gear requirements for entering certain battle content, such as dungeons and things like that? Will you be required to be equipped with more battle-ready gear, as opposed to maybe going in as specifically a crafter/gatherer who is just tagging along to help out the main battle party?
No restrictions there. If you die a horrible, painful, embarrassing death, that is on you.
Got it.
Nico, do you have one?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Marcia, did you have one? I thought I saw your hand up. Nope, I'm just tripping then. Crackdow, I need to get you. What's up?
Yeah, I had two questions on sort of either side of the socialization aspect. The first question I have, which might be explained inside of the Final Fantasy universe, which I haven't really indulged in very much. If I'm visiting another another realm, let's say, what would be the incentives or the reasons for me to go from my realm into another realm?
If you have friends in another realm. That's the reason that visiting exists in Final Fantasy in the first place. Because I have friends that I want to see that are on different home worlds. And also, it might not be possible to move to that world entirely right now. So, I was originally, for anybody that knows Final Fantasy, I was originally on Marlboro, or whatever it is called. And then all of my friends were on Mateus. And I couldn't move to Mateus because Mateus was congested for a very long time. But I would go visit often. I'd go visit and I'd say hi. Would go back to my world to go do stuff, but that was pretty much the loop. And then eventually Mateus opened up and I moved there. But the visiting there, the incentive is, it's not an incentive more as it is an option for you to still go and interact with people that you want to interact with. You're not just outright limited from interacting with them at all.
Okay. And
All right,
my
Rocky,
second
what's up?
question.
Oh,
My
sorry,
second
sorry,
question.
sorry. Go ahead, Crackdown.
Okay. My second question, sort of on the opposite side, is about both in and out of game moderation. I know just as somebody who enjoys games like this and especially enjoys things like Discord, that moderation is a key part of it. But sometimes mods can become the coolest kid at the kitchen at the lunch table. Is there any foreseeable aspects inside of game or inside of Discord in which this can be decentralized or pointed out, or will this be a when it comes up, we'll address it type thing?
It's so the when it comes up, we'll address it approach is cool in theory, but prevention is always better than punishment, right? For anybody that has done any kind of moderation or administration or who has ever led teams, you know that it's better to set up the foundation correctly than to have to correct bad behavior later. Whenever it comes to actual moderation, because there will be, I mean, a pretty sizable handful of people who are making sure that the servers are running smoothly, that people aren't exploiting. People that are either people that I trust as administrators or are developers of the game who will go in specifically to get more insight about the state of the game. I think the best I can do, because the only way that anyone is going to see it is if they just see it in action and go, they're doing a good job, Nothing I can say to you right now will prove to you that things will be fine, but what I can say is that every GM will be trained by me specifically. So if there is anybody out there that is acting upon my will to make sure that servers are running smoothly, it is through me and by me. And the best part about that is there is a consistency. And the better part about that is that if something needs to change, we can do so unilaterally without it being this big problematic issue. I do not like bad actors. I don't like it when people undermine the things that I work for a long time. If there are bad actors, I will find them. It will be very quick, and they will never have a hand in this project again. That's all I can say for now.
Right.
Okay, Rocky, you got a question? Will it be weight based, or will there be a cap on how much to carry? Could we also upgrade our inventory? On that second question, yes. The first one, it's really going to come down to player testing, because I would love it to be weight based. But there also comes like just the question of how is that going to play with the armor weight system? What happens if if you were right there up at your cap, if it was a cap, you could move perfectly fine. But if it's weight based, then you might be pretty much, almost stationary. So a lot of that's going to come down with testing. If we try a system and a bunch of people are like, this is really cool, we love this, then sure. But if not, if a bunch of players are like, this isn't super intuitive, it doesn't feel good, then we'll just scratch it. It'll just come down to what players want on that side. What's up, William?
I just had one more question. When it comes to blacksmithing or alchemists or even just like fighting roles, will there
Mhm.
be a way for you to make a name for yourself and be known throughout, everywhere? I guess.
Yes. So I love this question because it allows me to use the situation that I love to reference, even though it's a fake situation, and that is the Great Goblin War, right?
Oh god.
For any of you that have been in the server, you know that I love talking about the Great Goblin War. So eventually, there will be some sort of large-scale engagement with you, all of the players, and monsters, right? Um, and that will open the door for players to make a name for themselves, both by sight of action, other people watching you do crazy, incredible things to protect your brothers in arms, or just getting away with things that shouldn't be possible, or if there is a level of exceptionalism, those are things that we build into the world. If there is, like, let's say that there's this one just berserk dude, right, and he kills like 100 goblins and he saves, like, I don't know, 17 people from being killed who have already been downed, right? If there is just an overwhelming like event like that that happens, that's something that gets commemorated. That's something people build statues over, and that's something that we want to include into the world because it gives players an opportunity to actually be a part of the experience. And it allows for storytelling. Whenever you tell stories about the game, it shouldn't be what is fed to you. It should be what you did. That is the approach that makes games where you can actually be a part of the experience tangible. So short answer, yes. We have a lot of ways that we want to do that, and you'll see more as we continue to develop. But short answer, yes. All right, correct. I'll get back to you. Crazily, what's up?
It's referring more to mechanics again, but like with inventory management, would it be like sort of more like you pull something out, you manage your inventory, something goes to the ball, or would it be like sort of like a UI like Minecraft?
It'll be a mix. So you'll have your backpack, and there will be some things that are physical, and there will some things that be compartmentalized to UI. Just because it's impossible in a game like this to have just a completely physically bound inventory, especially with the problems that might arise with physical issues or glitches. So there's going to be a healthy medium, but the most important things that you need will be instantiated, and you will just be able to grab them from out of your bag.
Awesome.
Correct. What's up?
Yeah, William's question reminded me of an aspect that I love to use in games like Dark Souls and
Sure.
other Souls-like things, which is using the environment itself as part of my toolkit or as a weapon or part of my strategy. I know there's a bit of a debate on whether or not utilizing the aspects of the environment is cheesing or if it is just like smart gameplay, right? Like if I'm standing behind a rock shooting a bow and arrow at the monster that can't reach me, is that just cheesing the game or is that smart gameplay? Will there be aspects inside of the game where we can use the environment as strategy or a combat aspect, or would that be largely, seen as exploit?
There can. You will be able to do that. But monsters will be able to be angry. And if they think that you're cheesing, they will find a way to get to you and beat the brakes off of you. There is a level of ingenuity that we want to have with our enemies, and anger is a part of that because it's the most realistic way to think about aggro. If you're sitting behind a rock and I'm trying to get to you and I can't get you because you're sitting behind a rock and you keep putting arrows in me, dude, I might pick up that rock and crush you with it. I mean, anything can happen. So the real goal is to have the environment be dynamic in a way that is performant, but not just for you. It should involve the enemies as well. So you can expect us to experiment with things like that as time goes on.
The image of an orc getting so mad that they sprout wings and fly to me is hilarious.
Yeah, that'd be insane. I don't know if it'll go that far, but Golden, what's up?
Two questions.
Sure.
So
After
you said
yours,
something
we're gonna
about
knock out the last
moving.
listed questions, by the way. But go ahead.
We have some questions
So-
in chat too. I'd like to get through as well.
Okay.
You said something about becoming a visitor in a different server. Could I move to a different server entirely?
Yes.
Second question: How do we apply for beta testing?
So beta testing applications are closed because we have almost 1,000 of them. Whenever they open up, I'll post an announcement. All right, let's get these chat questions.
Okay, very cool. So I know I'm like Okay, he's actually in the VRC world right now, but Ragney asked if this guy if this has already been asked, then I'm sorry, but will you guys have events like for Halloween and Christmas and other holidays, etc.?
Yes.
Very cool. Minty said, don't feel like talking right now. Minty said, don't feel like talking right now, but I want to ask if there would be certain items or armor that would increase the efficiency of a skill gain. I like that question.
Yes, but it will always be temporary. Now there may be things that, like I said, your clothes will be, some things that depending on the job can be utility, right? Like again, for gathering, you can have larger pouches, and that can indirectly increase that XP gain, but it will never be a direct. You have this item, and it, just by value manipulation, increases your XP gain.
It just makes some skill things easier than others, basically.
Which in tandem makes it easier to level up.
Right. Somebody, Poltergeist asked, will any puzzles or riddles be implemented into the game?
I love labyrinths. I love dungeons. We will implement them where able. The real question is making them procedural. So once you complete a dungeon or get through one area, it's never playable again. So best I can give right now is we're experimenting.
Fantastic. Ratney also asked, will there just be a traditional health bar? Also, will there be limb damage? Example, you get hit in the leg, your movement is impeded or slowed. You get hit in your dominant arm, your damage is decreased or you swing slower. Another question, I know we have backpacks, but will we have bags of holding that we can purchase? Good question.
I don't know about bags of holding. They are a technical man's nightmare. Not in this, or sorry, they are a nightmare in the sense of making them both technically and narratively consistent. To answer the question about limb damage, I don't know yet. I don't know if we want to have that in-depth of an experience, but what I can say is that wounds will be localized, right? If you get a cut in your arm, that is a cut on your arm. You can only heal it by tending to that arm, and they'll all be visible. You'll be able to see those things. Will it go so far as to cripple you whenever you take specific types of damage? I don't know. I don't know if we'll take it that hard, but it's possible. Who knows?
Awesome. Bright Raff asked, are there any plans on player-controlled entertainment like stages or even social ones like bars?
Yes, we're considering things of that nature. One of the big things that I hear about is like a tavern that players can work at for gold, and are run by another player, and of course that would open the opportunity for people to be social. Now, will it be something that we facilitate and regulate? I'm not sure, because there are a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of decisions that I frankly think that we don't have the right to decide. But what I can say is that we will absolutely build the world, build the buildings, build the environment in a way that encourages those.
Okay, fantastic. Next question. With different swords and weapons, would there be a different charges and damages for lighter to heavy swords, like rapiers being quickly charged since it requires faster movement?
My question.
It depends. So a lot of it, you were going to feel more of a difference in the ability for you to use those skills being higher level in those weapons than you are switching to a different type of weapon. Most of the problem, or most of the challenge that comes with a specific weapon is inherent to the weapon itself and not its skills, namely with weights or the way that you have to use it to deal damage. So that's one of those things that I can't say for certain. I'm doubtful though.
Okay, perfect. Someone said, can we get books in game?
Yes.
Very cool. Next question. They're picking on my keyboard sounds. Give me a moment. I'm trying to get past that part. So the enemies are going to be adaptable. That's super cool. That was more of a statement. Okay. Give me a second. I'm trying to find it. Okay. Someone asked how many beards there are in character customization.
There will be a lot.
Fearless Drew said, will mods ever play villains for world events instead of the normal monster AI?
I'm doubtful, because it is, or not that I'm doubtful, I don't know, because it's essentially just PvP. We get that question a lot, if players or mods will play monsters. I don't know. Again, it's going to come down to PvP implementation, because it essentially just is PvP, right? If I put a mod in the body of a monster, then it becomes PvP. And if it's going to be interactive or VR in any capacity, then it's a whole networking concern outside of our already planned PvP implementations. So I don't know right now.
Okay. I think last one so far, people are typing, but will enemies like goblins have their own events, like the celebration of, oh heavens, I cannot pronounce that, Maglubiet, make goblins more aggressive or dangerous? Reminds
we
me
will
of
have
the Kingdom Two
events-
Crowns, Red Moons, if that makes sense.
It does. We have we plan on events that will change the way that the environment works, events that change the way that monsters work and respond. All of those things are things that we plan on because one of our biggest goals is to make the world feel immersive and alive and dynamic, which are three things that should exist together more often but don't for some reason. We want to change that, so definitely on the list.
Okay, fantastic. Somebody asked about puzzle elements. We just answered that one. We're thinking about it. I was in the world earlier, but I was wondering if there are ideas for having full body tracking like Boot Dagger EST.
No. So I like the idea of there being a like maybe a set of skills that are particular to full body, like things regarding feet, but the problem comes with it again builds an inherent advantage slash disadvantage. So the real question that we have to ask is instead of having specific abilities being tied to full body, how do we adapt existing abilities to full body and then make it optional for those players? So
Right.
that's a different conversation that we'll have and we'll talk about mechanically. But to have individual abilities that only people with full body tracking have, it's not realistic. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay, we have a question from God Icebolt, which we have answered before, but I feel like it's a really valuable one to answer live now because it gets asked quite a bit.
Sure.
Will y'all ever switch to one-time purchases for the game? He also said, hey, you two, take care of yourselves. But he said in full release.
Okay. Great question. So for those of you that know about our pay model, I know some of you haven't. If you played Final Fantasy ever, that's the approach we're taking, but cheaper. Essentially, the way that we have it set is from the time you start playing a game up until a certain point, the game is completely free, right? You don't have to pay for anything. There's nothing you have to pay for to progress. And then once you get to this point, it's pretty much a level cap, and you can opt into a cheap subscription to help with server upkeep to get access to these other things. But if you don't want to pay for that, if you don't want to go there, then you can continue to play here for free. It's not going to be like the end of a demo whenever you're done. That's it. You got to pay for it now. So the idea is that we allow people who are very much about the experience to contribute to server costs, and for those that aren't, they don't have to. And I know that there are a lot of questions as to why. I think I haven't played Eve, so I can't tell you. Final Fantasy XIV is the best example I can get, but it's cheaper. But the reason that we did that is because I have talked to many, many, many people regarding Zenith and regarding Township, and there has been not a unanimous, but a near unanimous agreement that something like a cheap subscription would have saved a game like Zenith. It would have given them the funds to pay developers to actually work on the features that they promised. And actually gave them the ability to develop new content instead of having to shove in a bunch of microtransactions near the end of life.
It
So
also
that's
kind of is up to server load as well. Like something has to pay for servers, and we can use all of the funds from the Kickstarter to pay for servers, but at some point that money will run out, and either we go bankrupt personally, as in either the company or us as people, try to keep this going, or we implement something like a very cheap subscription so that the people can pay for their own server load, because in VR specifically, it's not just one, you're not just one instance. Like VR itself, you are, what is it, 3 instances for one person or
You're
6
3.
for full body tracking?
Yep.
So it's a heavier load than most servers in games, and so that model is not to be malicious. We're not doing it to make you pay monthly because we want to fill our pockets. We're not those kind of people. It's literally just to make sure the game will survive past the first few months, basically. We don't want
now
it to
Ron
die off.
Ron asked a really good question. What is cheap? I think that's a perfect question. We want to have a target to reach, but ideally, we want to shoot for the $10 a month range, which is cheaper than most MMO subscriptions. Will that happen? I don't know, but I will say that $10-15 is a lot better than a one-time $40 purchase, at least from a sustainability perspective. So that is the direction that we are taking, because it's the direction that every MMO takes. And MMO is fundamentally different than other games in the way that servers are run and upkept. Other than that, servers have to be privatized, and if a server is privatized, then it's hell and high water. It's like every server for any game that you can buy a server for. Like, imagine a Minecraft server. That's what it would become. And it's not very conducive to the idea of an MMO, right? If there are questions
Definitely.
about that, please ask in general. I want to make sure that we're super transparent about our pricing model, because
Absolutely.
there's nothing worse than just like people contributing a bunch of money to a project and then it not going to the things that they said it would. Very like big thing that happened in Zenith. We all know that happened. So please, if you guys have that question, ask the devs or even just open a ticket for it. I'm happy to talk to you guys. Correct, Al, you had a question?
Okay.
Yeah, I
Sorry,
just had
I'll
a
come
quick
back to that.
question. I just had a quick
What's up?
question about the model in Final Fantasy. You said there was a cap, and then if you wanna get like up here, there's a monthly fee or like some sort of payment. Will people up here still be able to play with the free players, or is this like a totally different area?
100%, it'll be a completely integrated experience. One of the best things about Final Fantasy is I was able to get a bunch of people into it because there was no cost of entry. Like, I pay for a Final Fantasy subscription because I like the game, but I've had friends who have never played it before and they go, well, I don't know if I want to pay a subscription. Guess what? You don't have to. Start playing, see how you feel. If you like it, then you can go from there,
Absolutely. I have two questions kind of related to the payments people asked
Sure.
in a similar way. Someone, Poltergeist asked, and so did God Ice Bolt, kind of, what happens when you have to unsubscribe for a bit? Like, do you lose the content that you got from what you paid for? Like, does it get locked? Would you keep it? And then God Ice Bolt said, what happens if people start paying and then stop, but are much higher level than the people who never paid at all?
So we're trying to figure out the best way to not necessarily mitigate that, because here's the thing: we all know this, life happens, right? One of the things that I've done is be like, fuck, dude, I'm not playing Final Fantasy this month. That being said, okay, hang on.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it's a miracle. All right, we're on the wire. We're on like the last 10% of juice. So that being said, right, we want to find a system that does not just make it the worst thing in the world for players, right? So there was the consideration that we had of like, okay, well, that character is locked. You can't play that character until you re-opt, but there's nothing stopping you from making a new one. Or maybe you would get brought down back to that threshold level that free players are at, and then you wouldn't lose any of your progress. You just couldn't progress further. But in no instance do you lose all of your work. In no instance do we just delete your character and go, well, that's it for you. So there are a lot of decisions that we're trying to make in the vein of what's going to be the best for keeping servers funded and keeping them sustained while also not screwing players over. And as soon as we come to a decision, which will definitely be very community involved, you guys will know.
Yeah, there is a question in chat that I want to answer right now because I don't want to get lost. And
Sure.
It's really, really important to me. We've talked about it a bit between ourselves. Cloud of the Dreaming Knight said, are you worried about over-promising? Okay, I talk about this a lot. If you've ever heard me, I was in BC earlier today, I talked about this before. False promises are something that Star and I do not like. We don't do it in our friendships, we don't do it in this community, and we don't do it in our own relationship. It is something that we hold very dear to ourselves, to be able to be honest and say, we can't do this. Because the worst thing is to go into something and say, oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. And then to just go back later and take it back. It's wrong, it feels shisty, we hate it. That being said, like, we try not to do that ever. We're going to be upfront. If we're going to answer a question, be like, we love that idea, we want to do that, we'll keep it on our radar. Because we're not just going to say, yes, it'll happen. and then go back on it, because we've been on the other side of that screen. We have been the player or the person or the friend or the family member who have been promised something and had that ripped out from under us, and it's something that we refuse to do to anyone else. It's strictly against our policy. We're going to do our absolute best to never let that happen, and if something happens and we find out that something we were guaranteed to do isn't going to happen, that will be communicated every step of the way. Not only if it will happen or not, but the reasoning behind it. It will not just be a because I said so. That is not our policy. We do not do that. I just wanted to get
I
that
think
answer
that-
because I didn't want to get lost.
Sure. And I also think that, and if you guys don't agree with me, then please tell us. But I feel like I've been pretty upfront in going, this doesn't seem like a realistic implementation. We might try it in the future, but right now I'm very doubtful. Like I'm doubtful that that will happen. Because I've been there. Who here has played Zenith?
That's a lot of hands.
A bunch of you. Who here has a house in Zenith?
I have.
Ragnar, you have a house in Zenith? Take those
That's
in.
a no.
Does anyone here have a house in Zenith?
I did at one point.
At one point. What has happened to it now?
I just hated it, so I kind of just stopped doing it.
Uh-huh,
It's kind of
exactly. So the idea here is that, and we see it in other studios. This isn't something that we're just like, oh, we're not going to do it. We've seen it happen and we've seen the effects. Zenith did it. Who here played the non-VR version of Zenith? Did you, Cloud?
Cloud
I
was
know
very
you didn't.
passionate about that.
Because it doesn't exist.
There's not. That's the point. They said there would be. A lot of people paid for one, and they said there would be, but they didn't consider the implications of that. And so as we're planning this game, the first question that I've asked myself, because I am the lead technical implementation developer and I am the lead designer on this project, the thing that I've asked myself every time I go, this would be cool to be in this game is it doable? Is it realistic? Is it conducive to the experience? Can it be done in the next 10 years? Which if I have an inkling that it's going to take like years of implementation, then right now it's automatically off the table. That's a later thing, So, we're going to continue to do that as much as possible. And I'm sorry if it feels a little mean if you guys ask about this cool feature that you really want and I go no, but I promise there's a good reason. And the last thing I want to do is tell you that it will exist and then it doesn't. So.
And trust me, this guy loves to explain things and loves to yep, so he will tell you why.
Okay, all right.
That was a compliment.
Golden, did you have a question? Because I saw your hand up earlier. I just want.
I had two questions. So if I pay for the subscription, and then I level up or do whatever I paid for, then I go into areas and I find people that didn't pay for it. Am I gonna be like 10 times stronger than the people that didn't? Or
I think his headset may have died. Considering
looks like
he's
it.
standing in the same boat. He's
He's
been a little bit immortalized. Could you repeat that question one more time and I can try to answer it to the best of my
So,
ability until he gets
if
back in?
someone pays for the subscription, are they gonna be stronger than players that didn't pay for it?
So that's kind of a hard one to answer. It's man, he really would have been better to answer this, and he evaporated. So, Star has a lot more notes on this than I do currently. I know that you guys haven't really seen me around besides me just talking in general chat and stuff like that. I'm kind of in the creative director level. I work on writing for the game. I work on stuff like that, and I help Star where needed. I do not know how he would answer this one, to be quite honest with you. So we're going to make sure that he can answer it. So if you need to, if you need to put it in general or something and ping him about it, or put it in the Ask the Devs, I will make sure he sees it, because I don't want to answer it and then it'd be wrong, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes some kind of sense. Man, he really abandoned me here.
I can try if you want me to.
This is Cat talking. Hi. Yeah, you can try, Jester. That's right. You have the notes. You go on that.
In a base sense, yes, you would be stronger, but that's not to say they won't be able to kill you, right? If it came down to a PvP aspect, and they are simply, at the end of the day, better than you, they will kill you. You will die, and you will hate it. You'll be like, man, I guess I suck because unfortunately, yeah, you did.
It doesn't necessarily mean you'll be OP, basically. It just means that you have the ability to progress further skill-wise. That doesn't necessarily mean that a player who isn't able to pay cannot hone those skills in a way that is considered smart gaming rather than cheesing, like Cracked Out was talking about, which I see your hand up. Do you have a question?
Yes. There might be a thread on this. I haven't been able to look, but I was really curious on how items and loot will physically show up inside the world.
Wow, okay. That is a really good question. Man, he just joined the town square, and if he... Oh, hi! He just walked in my office.
These questions together.
Oh, you're gonna come and use my mic? That's fun. I don't have a chair. You can... Oh, look, I have the step stool. You can sit on that in here. Guys, Star is in my office now, so you'll hear him come from me. Do you need my headset, or do you have it? Can you guys hear him okay? Do I need to, like, lean closer?
Are we on music and sound design now?
No, not yet. We were... Cracktow was asking a question. Can you hear the chat? No. You can't hear anything going on?
Not in game. Well,
Are you not listening to Jester's broadcast? Fool.
you're right.
Give him a minute, guys. I'm so sorry. Great skills happening right now, and
Take away his Yoo-hoo privileges.
I am gonna take away his Yoo-hoo privileges. I'm gonna cut his rain intake in half this week for the slight.
Inspires another question.
Fantastic. You can hear now? Good. Okay, Cracked Out, ask one more time. He's got his headphones on.
Fantastic. So my question was, how are items and loot going to show up physically inside of the game?
I mean, they'll drop physically for monsters as they die. There'll be physical items with just with effects around them to highlight them. It won't be anything crazy, but we will work hard to make them look good.
Oh, God, our cats are crying.
Poof, and then just the item drops, or what?
So it'll depend on the monster or the item, but generally, yes.
We've been considering the idea of like body looting, but it's kind of hard to know at this stage if that's going to be possible or not with the scope of the project.
Now, things specifically like gathering or mining, those will exist in the vein that, like, for gathering, you'll be able to pluck things off of trees and there will be resistance. For mining, you'll physically break the rock and that chunk is the item that you... We're playing around with a lot of smaller merge things. It's a little different with monster loot, but I can't really say much more than that for now.
Okay. Do we want to go from like one end to the other and answer questions? I see Demi's got their hand up. Absolutely. Demi, do you want to go ahead and ask?
In regards to the whole looting system, how will you be putting things in your inventory? Will you be putting them like behind your head into a backpack? Will you be putting them into a pouch? Just putting them to your chest, clicking a button?
You're gonna have to get me to translate to you, huh?
Yeah,
he can't hear. Okay, I'm gonna translate, or I can give you my headset actually if you just want to. He's gonna take my cat ear headset. Give me a minute.
All right, Demi, I know you just spent all that time explaining the question, but I need you to do it from the top for me.
How are you going to be putting things into your inventory? Like putting in a backpack behind you, putting it to your chest, like a lot of games do?
The idea is that you'll have a backpack that you can take on and off. We'll probably add an accessibility option to grab your backpack from your chest, because I know that some people don't have the ability to reach behind them fully. But under normal circumstances, yes, you will reach behind you and take your backpack off, and that'll be your means of inventory.
Okay.
All right, Cracktail.
Okay. This question isn't inspired by anything in particular. But if you're like training or mining or fighting, and your headset suddenly dies, and like you get disconnected or something like that, what do you imagine will be the server response? Like, do you get kicked? Are you logged out and then sent back to town? Do you log out and log in exactly where you were?
You die and you lose all your stuff. No, I'm kidding. We'll have checks for that. What the actual response will be will just kind of depend on, I guess, the level of fairness we want to have, because if the system ends up being that if your headset dies, you immediately get sent back to town, then what's stopping you from just unplugging your headset, you know, to save yourself from a fight? So there's going to have to be a level to it, but ideally what will happen is you'll be given a few seconds of grace after reconnecting your headset, but you'll stay in the same place. It won't be this big disconnected thing.
You lost your ball privileges.
All right, William, you're next, and then I'll get Rackney. I'm sorry for for jumping around.
I have two questions. First question is, can you save the game anywhere, or do you need to go back to your like home area to save?
I have a question for you. What would you need to save?
I don't know.
Exactly. So the only thing that you would ever need to save are your settings, and that'll happen as soon as you exit that menu. Everything else is handled on the server automatically.
Cool. Second question. I know this is probably for a further down the line question, but can we expect maybe yearly bosses, like custom bosses, to just appear and there being a competitive edge of who defeats it first gets their loot?
Yes.
Cool.
Short answer, yes.
I paid like
That was it.
for my bit.
Oh, okay. Well, was it an all
Cool.
you can eat at
I'll
least?
check it out.
All right, Rackney, I see you. Give it to me.
So, adding on to Demi's question about the backpacks, when we're putting stuff in our backpack, is it just going to be like Township Town? We just like put it on our back, like the animation, it just automatically goes in there? Or is it going to be like we take the backpack off and just store it in there manually instead of just like quick doing it?
I don't know what level will have it. It might be different for different items. It's going to come down to what is intuitive versus what feels the most immersive, and that's something we'll hammer out in player testing. It's very possible that some people, like myself, would want to physically grab my backpack to do those things, so we might make it an option. But, you know, we'll see when that time gets there.
One more thing. So, whenever there's our inventory in our backpack, is it just going to be like item slots, or is it going to be like a Tetris system?
It'll be more like item slots, but there will be specific items that are physically bound. So the way that it looks right now, the way that we have it prototyped, is there is a backpack and there are specific slots in the backpack for like potions, a map, maybe a journal, but then you also have a small section that is more of like a scrollable item slot section where you can have other items that are not immediate. That way you have a mix of things that are important and things that you have a lot of.
Okay. That works. Thank you.
All right, Golden. Hit me with your best shot.
So, with like moving, like actually, like spinning, if someone can't like look this way, like I have a problem with looking this way.
Okay.
Is there gonna be like a second way of looking in different directions?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have smooth locomotion. You'll be able to rotate your body just fine. Will we have like actual overriding? You can rotate just your head with a control. I'm very doubtful, because it produces a lot of server overhead. But you will be able to rotate at any point, with no penalty, and you'll be able to set the speed for that as well. So, whatever you're comfortable with, you'll be able to set up. All right, are there any other questions regarding this before we knock out the last few listed ones?
Yeah, I got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see you, Nico. What's up? And then I'll get Crisley next.
So my question is, I have a micro OLED headset. Is there going to be like any HUD like for your life and all that that's static? And if so, is it able to move around so it doesn't cause like burn-in for OLED displays?
No, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
The only things that will appear as HUDs will be things that appear occasionally, or they'll be linked to some part of your body, like information about your health, your mana, that kind of stuff. There won't be things that are explicitly displayed, and there will 100% not be anything that's static on your display.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Crazily, what's up?
I had two questions. First one, how to what extent would free-to-play players be restricted? Because I know at World of Warcraft, for example, they're restricted from sending mail and accessing the auction house and stuff.
Right. We'll just kind of have to see what causes the most server load. The reason that those features are restricted from players that aren't subscribed is because they cause strain on servers and databases to make those operations. Even more so than just having a player exist. So you can probably expect any feature that requires transferring any information between one server to another server to be restricted for that purpose. In terms of what is possible, I don't think that players will be able to make guilds or do things that require adding entries to databases outside of creating the character and getting items and leveling up and learning new skills. So I think guilds would probably be out of the making guilds. I'm sure you could still join them. I think making guilds would be out of the question. And just things like mail between different servers. Owning a house, because that's a pretty big server load. Owning a shop. Anything that would require pretty much just instancing your own name onto our databases or our servers in that regard. But I think that the mitigation there is that people who want to run blacksmith shops and are already there probably aren't too worried about that anyway. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And second question, because obviously, well, I'm assuming anyway, the backpack won't have an infinite storage. What would you do
Sure.
if you have an overflow of items? Would you have to sell them, or would it be another sort of storage system?
I'm sure that we will have some sort of player storage, but it won't be an infinite amount. But if we don't take the weight approach, it'll be pretty hefty. For anyone that has played a game like Final Fantasy, you know that you have a lot of inventory space, and it can take you the majority of the main story, if not the main story plus some, to fill that up. So I wouldn't stress too much about that. If there is a limit, if there is a limit that is intrusive, then we will absolutely create simple things like player storage to mitigate that.
Fair enough.
All right, Natural, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, so I had the follow-up question about the guilds. I know you said there's very harsh requirements, about getting in, creating the guilds. You said it's gold, levels, all of that stuff. And then you were saying something about the database, where it's going to be very, limited to, how we do that. As far as I know right now, of the Discord, there's a good 5 guild masters. I'll say that with quotation marks. Because you have me, you have Chicken Noodle right here. You have a couple others out there, but what do you know specifics what the requirements will be if if
Yes.
not, that's probably a further down the road kind of question.
It's definitely not a further down the road question. I can tell you right now that you will have to be a specific level in any skill. You will have to procure and pay a certain amount of gold. What that number isn't decided yet. But most importantly, and this is the big one, you will have to have a certain number of people that pledge to your guild, right? So in Final Fantasy, the way that it worked is if you wanted to make a guild, you had to be a certain level. You had to pay, I don't even know if they did a gold system in Final Fantasy, I can't remember. But what you did have to do is you had to get 3 other players to sign off on your guild. saying, I want to be a part of this guild, and they become the founders of that guild. And as soon as those 3 players sign off, boom, the guild is created, right? And then all those people are automatically placed into it. So the act really is you proving to me that your guild is not going to waste space on a database. The other people do actually want to join it, and they will as soon as it exists. So that's where that mentality is.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I don't know if anyone over here is holding their hands up. Oh, what's up, Nerf?
So off of them, so let's just say, what happens if like you see your 4 people, right? That made the guild. If one leaves, does the guild just get shut down?
It doesn't get shut down, but you can't do a lot of your core functions.
I get you, yeah.
And that's just to prevent guild fraud, which is a thing that happens. So
like 3
you know, you
people
can't be like
get paid to get in the guild and then just leave them.
and then leave. Yep.
Hey God Ice Bolt, I saw you in chat. No, you will not be able to multi-guild just because it would really make things super complex in terms of what things that guilds share with each of the members. Also, I'm sorry, I'm like over the shoulder.
Yeah, you will not be able to multi-guild. At least not now. All right, I'm not seeing. What's up, Ghosty?
Hi, I just had a quick question. I was just wondering if the game will have kind of like a Jesus Christ, wow, that was a bad stutter. Encyclopedia. I'm probably saying that so wrong. Jesus Christ. It'll hold like details about monsters, like their type of like actions, how they react. Yeah, like an index of like possible loot drops, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's something that's planned. What we want to do actually is have it to where as soon as the servers like launch for the first time, everyone's indexes are empty, and people can share that information with each other and learn more if they want. But you won't have it off the rip. It'll be something that players discover as they go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a very small question.
Sure.
Will you be able to attach lanterns to your waist or your backpack?
Yes, you will also be able to attach them to your mounts.
Oh, cool.
So there was a question for any worries about guild supremacy ruling servers, and short answer, no. Especially because right now we don't have any like very large economic benefit to being in a guild. Will there be economic benefit? Sure. Will there be skill benefit, especially from the means of like people teaching other people how to do certain skills, or people working together? Absolutely. But I really don't foresee there being like a big, this guild just absolutely dominates the server and no one else can do anything. A lot of the systems that we build during player testing will be to make sure that everybody has a fair chance at having that experience without having to just kind of, die to the machine. If that makes sense.
Can I make a statement about the guilds like ruling thing?
Sure, go ahead.
So I know the guilds that I'm familiar with from the Discord server, we have our own way of communicating like outside of the server where we're all very friendly with each other. I don't think it's going to truly be an issue with like harmful server environment with guilds like trying to roll over each other. I think most guilds right now are very, very friendly with each other.
There will always be bad actors, and while you guys are really awesome as a community, and I've seen all the nice things that you guys do for each other, there will always be bad actors, and we always have to have something in place to be ready to deal with those. Because if we're not, and we go, but the community's been so nice, well then that's on us, So we need to be ready for that, and we need to have systems in place to be able to handle that whenever the time comes.
It is often the case in which those who are bad actors stay very quiet in positive communities and wait for their chance to screw things over for everyone else.
It's true.
Purely because, honestly, I think it's because hiding behind a screen makes it a lot easier for someone to be an asshole. Which is unfortunate, but it is the reality of the internet today, and I think that when they see a really positive community, they know they'll get ganged up on in terms of, hey, don't be a douche, like, Everyone here is trying to foster that, so once they get in the game, they'll probably start popping up, and in that case is when we're going to start stepping. I mean, we'll be stepping any other way, not
Sure.
just start to.
But that's on the money. Hopefully that answers that question. Okay. What's up, Rocky? Be able to attach lanterns to our longer weapons like the spears and polearms.
I like that.
That's a cool idea. I won't lie, I have not considered it, but I will make a note of it because that would be a really cool thing to implement that I don't think would have a lot of overhead. Yeah, write that down if you don't mind.
Like attaching your
Yeah,
lantern
sticky
to
notes
your
all over.
pickaxe, like you can at Township.
What's up, Cracktail?
I was wondering specifically about the bestiary aspects. I really like the idea of having a bestiary that evolves as you find things, right, like a Pokedex or something. And can it also be an actual book that I rip pages out and hand to people to share information?
I don't know. That sounds like it. I won't lie to you. That sounds like a technical nightmare. It is something that I will write down and we might revisit as time goes on. But for now, I'm going to say no. So real quick, before we answer any more player questions, I'm going to blow through our last few written questions.
Literally actual ones and then fun ones.
The first one is, will a game take inspiration from Sword Art Online for its soundtrack? Short answer, kind of. Long answer, no. I mean, that's not a long answer.
That was
but,
a Cloud Dealer question. I see you.
So the thing about music, I very much care about music. I think it's a very integral part to any experience. I've been in music for a long, long time. I play several instruments. I went to school for it for a while. I believe that music tells a story. I believe that the melody is a motif that blends into every single part of the game. If you've ever played a game like Octopath Traveler, or even like older Nintendo games like Super Mario Galaxy, you know how much sound is important to the experience of a game. And with an experience like this, we are trying to tell players that for the first time, they are getting the experience they've wanted for a long time. And so, there's definitely a level of quality that I want, and I'm being very picky. Sword Art Online is one of those inspirations, but it was also very tame, and I think I don't want to say that it was bad, because it wasn't. It has great tracks, but when you think of Sword Art Online's music, you think of Crossing Field, and then you think of Life, Life's tracks, what is it, Everyday Life, and then Tender Feeling, or whatever it is. I don't want to be pretentious, but I care very much about this experience, and we can do better. I'm very excited to show you what I've been working on, because it will not die. I want these themes to be singable. I want them to be memorable. Boognish, do me a favor and open a ticket for me. Open a staffing ticket. We'll chat.
Before we forget, that link right there.
This
Down.
one?
Nope, down. That's the one.
Yeah, okay.
On that.
Sorry.
He asked it a while ago.
How will modding work? So again, server off, right? The thing with modding is that it doesn't work if your game is server off. The thing about games like Monster Hunter is, with it being an action-heavy experience, Square Enix is not too worried about people fluffing their money counts, and that's why they make it a client-handled event, because it's better for the user experience, and then they bundle it in with an anti-cheat, right? The thing about our approach is that everything is going to be done on the server, right? If you get 10 gold, it's because the server gave you 10 gold. No clients can make the server do anything unless you've broken into the server, which is a whole different level of security issue, right? That's so past the point of modding or clients or anything like that. But, rest assured we are taking very substantial steps to make sure that that isn't a problem. All right. Last serious written question is, what can we expect when it comes to player immersion? Will there be sounds like birds calling, creepy cave noises, town ambience? Yes, and yes. I mean, so much so to where you can pick grass and let it go into the wind and it'll fly off. Or, just like in Township, whenever you strike the stone on your weapon, you can use it to spark grass light, or you can pick fruit off of trees. Or, there will be birds around you that are chirping that if you accidentally scare off, they'll fly away in droves,
The biggest thing about VR that makes it so full of potential is how much life it can be full of, but that has to be done intentionally. And so one of our biggest things is making sure that immersion is very high on the list, and that comes with features like that. So I'm excited to show you the little things that are going to make the world feel alive, because I think you guys will enjoy them as well.
Oh my god, 2 silly questions that I enjoyed.
The first question, do you like Dr. Pepper? Oh my god, yes.
Yes.
We're Dr. Pepper
I wouldn't say fiends.
fans. I'd say fans.
Fans,
We're
not
fans.
fiends.
We're fans.
If you want a fiend, you give me some root beer, dude.
And then, do the developers have any pets? What are their names?
Yes and yes.
So I can't speak for every team member, but I can speak for myself and Carson, and I can speak for Willis. We all own cats. We own 2 cats, both girls. One is named Willow. We got her when she was really young, and then one is named Wisp. We got her recently
3 weeks
after she was rescued from an abusive household. So
They're currently meowing outside of my office door begging for dinner.
Wow, that's the name of my old family in Black Desert.
they are both 10 months. 10 months.
Actually,
I think they were 11 now.
as of the 8th of April coming up, they will both be 11
Yeah.
months old, so almost a year. Still babies, technically.
All right, Cracktow, hit me with your best shot.
Fantastic. Just like you, I really enjoy riddles and cave dives and event things like that. And I know that in a game like Township Tale, the only thing I ever really did in the outer world was get a bigger backpack and train up my levels before diving into their mine. The lowest I've ever gotten was about 437 floors. So my question to you is, when it comes to the caves, how deep are you planning on making them, and how would we be exploring through them?
So I think one of the big things that that we considered when we looked at that model was it is a replacement, granted a servable one, but it is a replacement for an actual substantive world. It is a lot easier to put a depthful experience into its own isolated piece of the world, but I don't think that's good enough. Now, whenever it comes to actual caves, will it be to the extent of hundreds and hundreds of levels? Probably not. Do we want to do things procedurally? Sure, but the experience should be meaningful enough, and the purpose of your adventure, intentional enough to where you don't feel like you're mindlessly hitting floors. Is that to say that we won't have deep cave systems? No, not at all. I would love to have it where you find yourself in these procedurally generated dungeons where you and your friends are pretty much fighting for your lives deep down underground, but will it be to the extent of that? I'm doubtful. I think we want our meaningful world building and design and scope to be present everywhere instead of isolated. And your next question?
As a follow-up to that, when we're done inside of the cave delving, or done like breaking into the castle, or wherever this will be, when we're done at the end of a quest that has taken us into a particular part of the map, will we then be like walking back out the way we came, teleporting out, or will it like turn back around, i.e. Skyrim, where like we're at the end and then here's a door that leads outside?
Depends on what it is, right? I think that the possibility for all of them are in the cards. So let's say that you go to some like runic ruins that are underground. That is something that realistically you get through, and because there hasn't been much inhabitants, you are whisked out by some magical artifact, right? Used as a means of convenience for the people that were once there. Or if you are down in a goblin cave, you might have to fight your way back out of that motherfucker, right? It really just depends on what feels fun, because there is also an extent of fatigue. If you spend an hour in a cave or something, you might not want to spend an hour going back out. So we'll be able to hammer out a lot of that with player testing. Uh-oh.
Oh, is it frozen?
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, guys. My laptop is like 5 years old, 6 years old.
We'll be able to hammer out a lot of that with player testing, but we want to experiment with all of those avenues, because I think that there's a lot of value in each of them. Is there one over here?
Okay, so I had an answer for TNT. TNT, the answers the questions under the custom category, I filtered into categories based on what they matched closest. So what you had asked, I put in the damage point digital category, which was our first
Which is
one.
the first one. Yeah.
So we did answer it, but it was the beginning of the oh my gosh, Q&A. But I am working on something for that's going to be released after these Q&As are or this one is finished. I am working on getting all of the questions and answers from every Q&A written out in a forum where you guys can't really add posts to, but you can always go and read through all of them. This might take me a few days. There is a lot of footage. Some of these Q&As last, I mean, like this one was only meant to last 3 hours. It's been 4. So the ones previously that had no structure lasted quite a long time. So it will take me a couple days, and Alia and Willis are both actively helping with that. So bear with me, please. I will get it out as soon as I physically can. Hopefully that was like a good answer. Also, God, I asked to get a follow-up question.
Yeah, shoot me a friend request, Scott. I'll add you.
Thank you, Alia.
We have any pressing questions in front of us? All right. Well, that looks like it'll do it. It's been nearly 4 hours since we started. We'll probably use this as a good benchmark to kind of adjust the way that we have things structured for next time. But I really do appreciate you guys all coming out. If you guys have any other questions, check the Ask the Devs channel. For those of you that were asking about the player economy and about contributions to battle for like support roles, I will post the relevant threads in general, and you guys can just go to them and read them because it lays out pretty much everything that you guys would want to know. Ace, do you have a question?
Yeah, just I didn't catch this, but roughly, very rough. Like when the testing, rough.
It depends on whenever I get this physics setup implemented. So if it happens tomorrow, if it's a couple lines of code that that's super easy to implement, then we could see testing in a couple weeks. If it's not, it might be a month. You know, it just depends on when it's ready.
You're gonna need full body tracking.
No, you will not need full body tracking. As a matter of fact, full body tracking won't be implemented in this test. The goal is to just test the physics engine and see how well it runs. That way we can kind of start building into mechanics. Full body tracking is kind of a later consideration that's easier to implement on top of other systems. All right, anything else before we go?
I have a question.
What's up, Club?
Will we get the game before 2030?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need.
I don't make promises often. You guys will be able to play this before 2030. Because if you don't, I don't know, I'll probably kill myself, and then it won't be my problem anymore.
Don't
so.
say that, don't say that.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Oh goodness, can I drop ship in Asteria? Yes, someone did ask her if they could drop ship in Asteria.
How would you drop ship in Asteria?
Like purchasing things from
Entertain me.
players and then.
No, hold on.
Okay, go for it.
Can I make
I'm gonna
Bitcoin
go.
in
The
Asteria?
best merchant there is. I'm gonna
Uh-huh.
buy everything I can from them, give them like a month's worth of work, and then just sell it to everybody else for a higher price and tell them I made it.
You can't sell it for a higher price.
Aw. So I can't drop ship?
No, you can't drop ship.
Damn it. I wanted to drop ship.
Artificial inflation. Dickhead.
We love it.
What's up, William?
I'll just be.
And I'll get you
very,
next week.
very small, similar question. Will there be what's it called? Like, can we see what the most popular thing is that other players have bought? Like a
Are you gonna scalp them?
what?
Are you gonna go scalping?
No, but like what the most popular thing on the market is, so that other people could start, like making them, if that makes sense.
I don't know. I don't know because it'll open the door for again bad actors. Yeah, like I said, I don't know because it'll open the door for bad actors. I think that we'll implement some kind of system that gives like a general approach of like what kind of items are popular. But it's not going to be a specific thing like, hey, smithing hammers are the number 2 item that's bought right now. Like that's a lot of information to give to a volatile market. Because again, it'll just open the door for bad actors. The best way to make money is to do the thing that you like doing and do it well and build connections. That's the right answer. What's up, Nerf? No, I lied. No, shut up. Nico, what's up? It's a pyramid scheme question. What's up, Nico?
Oh, I think I answered my own question. I was an audio engineer, sound designing and stuff like that, and I guess I go to the ticket hub to like submit work and stuff like that for staffing.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead and open a staffing ticket and I'll chat with you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Demi, since I don't want to answer the actually no, I lied. Sorry, Demi. Cracktile, you're closer.
There might be a ticket for this. I haven't
Okay.
been able to look through it, but I was curious on monster spawn. When we do get to play, should we be worried about creatures and monsters like spawning on top of us, or will there be an aspect of like they don't spawn within a certain radius of players?
You're gonna spawn in the main town to start. They're not gonna be able to spawn on you.
No, I mean like when we're out in like the world exploring.
I don't think they'll spawn on top of you. It's super easy to implement checks like that. I think it would be really silly to watch them pop up, but there might be enemies that spawn on you intentionally. Like if you've killed a bunch of like moles or something, a big mama mole might pop up in the ground right in front of you and attack you because of it. But it's never going to be an unintentional janky thing. Like there will be a reason behind it. All right, Demi, what's up?
In regards to the player market stuff, on the opposite end of the scalping, donations. Like you craft a bunch of low gear to give to newbie players or something like that. Would that be something that could be implemented?
I think maybe the problem is that there has to be limits. So from like an economy sustainment perspective, if there is no way to inflate the market, then ways to deflate the market cause problems as well. From the perspective of like, just for example, give me a tool that you would want to make that you'd want to give to new players.
Maybe some like beginner armor, something that like a level 5 player could use easily. To get started, something
So
like that.
Let's say that there is a player blacksmith who is, I don't know, level 8. He's a level 8 blacksmith. And right now, his best source of both income and progression is to make armor for players that are, around level 3 to 7. If you go ahead and just completely cut that part out of the market, then, I mean, essentially, you've removed the ability for any of them to introduce income into the economy, but also for them to progress. And so, there has to be a limit to what isn't doable, especially because that scales up to you can give a player a set of level 90 armor for free. And now, of course, there are considerations for limits. A lot of that is tied to player level and certain skills. We just want to be careful about how much is doable. I don't think that charity is a bad thing. And of course, I would love to see a community that just helps each other out, but I also want to make sure that the experience isn't lost on anybody from too much help. So, I mean, there's a lot of conversations that we'll probably have to have regarding a balance there, but it definitely doesn't come without issues. All right, Sir Cool, GGGG, what's up?
Question.
What's up? I like your armor, by the way. What's up?
Thank you. Are you able to rob people?
We talked about maybe possibly robbing NPCs. You will not be able to rob players.
Okay. And one more question. Are you
Sure.
able to like eat food or drink?
Yes, and those things will give you buffs, but you will never get penalties for not doing those things.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, now back to your dumb pyramid scheme question, and then I'll get ghosty. What's up, Nerf?
Oh no, it's just pyramid scheme.
No.
That's a joke.
All right, ghosty. Ghosty, what's up?
Yeah, I just had a question. So say you're out in the field and you just want to go kill some monsters, maybe farm up some experience or something like that. What are you gonna possibly do about, or if there's anything you can do about maybe say guilds or parties like hogging certain like monster hunting grounds?
That's something that we'll be able to handle with the right, like combat exclusivity, like protocols. There are ways around that work. The good idea for whenever it comes to setting up areas is, whenever it comes to like a lot of like the biggest reason that people will go and camp a spot is because they want a rare item from a certain monster. Well, we're not doing the partial drop approach whenever it comes to monsters, right? So if an item isn't there, then the guild will see that and they will leave. Now, if they're just there to grind out monsters, there are ways around that. We plan on having combat exclusive settings to where other players can't just jump into your combat if you don't want them to. It'll be something that you can enable on a whim to prevent people from trying to jump in and grabbing your XP or something like that. But there are absolutely ways to account for that. So I wouldn't stress too much. And if it ever does become a problem, then obviously we can try to work to address that. I don't see it being a long-term issue, if it's even an issue at all.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions on any of those veins while we're here? Rackday, what's up, man?
So I've got 2 questions.
Sure.
So whenever you, let's say for example, you kill a goblin, do they despawn instantly, or can you just like go full on Gorn on them and just pick them up and use them as a weapon?
I don't know if the physics is going to allow for that. That is a much higher level of like physics networking that I don't know we'll be able to support at the scale that we want. I don't want to say that they'll despawn immediately. I think there will definitely be a delay. But they're not also going to just like fade out of existence. Like they'll probably have like beams of light poke through them and then they'll fucking explode into dust or something. Like similar to Mario and Luigi enemies, something that is narratively consistent with the world that we've built and how these monsters exist narratively, but also something that feels good and doesn't leave the question of, oh, why can't I grab them and throw them or whatever. Well, it's because they disintegrate or vaporize or whatever,
So it's not going to be like a ragdoll?
There might be a ragdoll, but you probably won't be able to pick them up.
Okay. And second question, this was probably already asked already, but I don't think I was here or I wasn't paying attention. So currency in game, it's probably going to be gold, but is it going to be like bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, like Terraria system, or is it just gold?
It might not be gold, and that would absolutely put a rest to that one. If it is gold, if we go the gold gill approach, then we might have varying currency values. But if not, we'll see, because I would love to have something, especially if a bunch of monsters are going to be carrying it. I would love if there was a currency that was, real and true to the world and made sense for, monsters to drop when you killed them. Something that would be used as a currency as alternate, just because of the state of the world and the story around it.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that works. Thank you.
What's up, Crackdow?
My question's more for a community aspect, and I was curious as to what the current vibe or approach towards streamers is within the community currently.
So, before I did any like game development stuff, my primary hobby was streaming. And I want to make sure that streamers have the tools that they need to be able to make content. And it's also not hard to implement these tools, like different desktop camera angles for streaming, live integration if we get to that point, So I don't think that there's a problem with streaming this game. I think there might be a performance concern for those individuals. But outside of that, I mean, I want to make sure that they have the tools to do that, because word of mouth and presentation to others is one of our strongest community notes right now.
Question. Their mascot for the game.
There is not a mascot for the game.
Do you not see the Discord image?
Oh.
There's not a mascot for the game yet.
Mascot, maybe. Is there pets? mascot. That's what I was
We've
trying to
gotten this one a lot. I don't know how pets are going to work, and no, there is not a pet mascot yet.
ask.
Any others? Or on the what's up, Neriform? You have a question?
Yeah, I have a question about like loot and like repeatable activities to get like items that you want and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Will those be in the game?
We don't want to take like a super heavy chance approach to a lot of things because the mentality that I had. So like again, I like the deer example because it's the simplest one. If there's a deer and you kill it, there's no reason that you shouldn't get meat from it. I think that's stupid. And goes against an immersion aspect. But things like raids where there are chance drops, yeah, that'll be something that can be repeatable if you're trying to get specific drops.
I guess like leading off of that, do you have plans for raids in the game, like whole team activity experiences where we come together to take on a massive boss guy?
Yes.
That sounds fun.
All right, Cracktow, you got the last question, and then we're out of here.
Oh, awesome. Building off of the loot question, and they're okay. Building off of the loot question, will we ever be finding broken or junk items?
Yes. Is there going to be the extent of repairing them and them having special traits? Maybe. I don't know what extent there will be there. But it is something that we've considered, and it is something that we will experiment with. So don't be surprised if you see something similar.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, this has been fun. We're gonna go to bed. Guys, all of you go attack Nerfed, and we'll call it a night. All right, thank you, guys.